You are now listening to the Sae Bae Cast, the #1 old school RuneScape podcast featuring guests from all across Galanor. To support this podcast, visit the Patreon link in the description.
All right, welcome to the Sae Bae Cast, number 79 with PureSpam. PureSpam, or Ian, it is definitely a pleasure for me to finally get you on after months of us being in the works to get this all scheduled out. So very excited to talk to you. How are you today, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you ever so much for inviting me on. I'm very excited to be here equally and to have a little conversation with you, chat away, talk about the game that we both grew up playing and we still love to bits. So yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm beyond excited. And I also love that you're so passionate about the game. Still to this day, because sometimes I feel, I don't know, I've had guests on where like they're clearly in a rut. They clearly aren't really probably enjoying themselves quite as much. And that kind of happens to everyone.
Yeah.
But it is different when you're on different wavelengths and you're talking to a guy that's like just doesn't see the game as you see it. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's an MMORPG, right? So like it's a very grind intensive game, but there's just so much that RuneScape has to offer. And I think same as you, we've played since we were kids, right? Growing up, and we're very fortunate to be in the positions we're in, where we've turned, our passion, our hobby into a career. And obviously I go through lulls like anyone does, especially creators when we're playing, upwards of 10 plus hours a day or whatever.
Yeah.
But definitely motivation right now at least is at a high, and I'm really loving the game at the moment. So.
Very cool. So I guess we'll just kind of go over an overview of you as a content creator, because I swear everyone's heard of PureSpam. I mean, seriously, I could ask anybody on Twitch. They would know who PureSpam is. You've been around for ages, and in a good way. You're not an old man or by any means. But,
thank you. Well, I am, but thank you.
We're both getting old.
I'm pushing 30 this year, and I've been playing RuneScape since I was, I guess, just about double figures.
Wow.
Started content creating back in 2010, 11, predominantly as a PvPer making YouTube videos, and then started streaming 2012. I think I made my Twitch account back in pre-EOC, back with the likes of Boaty, Alfie, Emily, who else was around back then? Tom, AOATube. I've been around for a long time, seen the highs and the lows of the game. Obviously, Old School came out, and that's really when I started to take things seriously and started to pursue things. Really realized that I could make it into a career and such. I went full time in maybe 2015, 16 as a streamer. I'm not too sure how long it's been now, but been around quite a while now.
Yeah, that is so cool. Isn't that crazy to think 2012
was
a decade ago? Like
it is mad. I recently celebrated my 10 years on Twitch, and I looked back at I had some old footage of on my old YouTube channel. Which I don't really upload to that much anymore, but I had a video like me going live. Hey guys, I'm on twitch.television if you'd like to come check it out. We're doing some PKing, and it was just like, wow. I was at university at the time, studying, never thought that I'd be, I hoped I'd still be playing the game, but never thought the game would still be around, or let alone I'd be, doing it as a job like we said before. So, blessed, very grateful, and happy to be here.
Wow. Okay, you know what? Just a little side tangent on that whole you having been around for a decade now. So is there I don't know. This is such a hard question for me to ask because there's no specific wording for it. It's kind of like, what have you seen throughout your 10 years of Twitch? Like the culture basically shift. Like, again, it's like even, it's kind of like an open-ended question. It's like, I don't know. What is Twitch culture? Because you kind of started toward the very beginning. I know Twitch was early, like a few years earlier than that when it first. When did Twitch come out? Because it was Justin TV originally, right?
It was Justin originally. I'm not sure if I joined at Justin times or not, but I remember when I got my partnership button, at least when I got partnership on Twitch, which was probably back in 2013, 14. And back then you had to actually email in and ask for the sub button. So for like a month or two, I had partnership, but I was only getting the ad revenue stuff. And then I was like, wait, I can get a sub button. People can pay to support me, and I can I can make revenue off this. That was really cool. But back then it was like, I guess everyone, even Boaty as well, we were all just doing it because we loved the game. We enjoyed content creation. We were inspired by other people, which I'll probably talk about later, who I was inspired by. But we just started off doing it for fun, and then we kind of just, it very much, I feel like it's the right place, right time kind of thing. We grew as the platform grew. And obviously we've had gifted subs and bits and all that kind of stuff that have really cemented in people's ability to be able to, pursue it as a job and such.
Yeah.
But back then it was very much you'd get your people from YouTube was a bigger platform. It still is a bigger platform, but back then Twitch was so tiny, and it was more so a case of, hey, I wanna stream, I wanna talk to people, interact at the same time, and got people to come fly in from our clans or from in-game people we knew or whatever. And it was a much smaller platform back then. I think the only person that was really pushing like 1K plus viewers back then was Adam. The rest of us were probably on, like 100, 200 or so. And I guess when Old School came out, things already started to snowball a bit. And in general, like Twitch obviously being bought by Amazon was a big commercial buy and kind of popularized the platform as well.
Yeah.
Just in general, gaming, of course, over the last 10, 15 years, with YouTube blowing up and that, and gaming in general going above and beyond, being more inclusive and such. It's very different. It's hard to really say exactly what it was like back then, but it was a lot more freedom, I suppose. TOS wasn't really as big of a thing back then either. It was a bit of a free for all, and it was a bit like the wilderness. It was kind of anything goes. It was very different.
Oh my gosh. You know what's weird about the whole thing? Okay, well, first of all, you and Bodhi brought up the same kind of point where you guys truly enjoyed gaming. It was never about the money because it couldn't be about the money at that time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And,
so
yeah.
I don't think I really made anything from YouTube back then or Twitch. I think people had donation buttons and such, and you might get the occasional tip and such, but it wasn't until, I guess, I think Adam really, in many ways, like you mentioned, Boti, really paved the way for a lot of creators. Back then I've known Adam for a very long time now. He was studying at university, and then he announced that he was going to go full-time. And I think back then he probably was making a very decent amount from YouTube as well. I wasn't that big of a YouTuber back then. But I think him going full-time really allowed a lot of other people as well to be like, you know what, we can actually pursue this, take the leap, and the rest is history, really.
That's so cool. It's really interesting to think as well that our generation, or like a generation ahead of us that have kids, it's no longer this weird thing where your kids are playing video games and you're scared for them. You're like, oh my God, they are gonna find and it's not to say that like anybody that likes video games can go pursue it and stuff, like, and that's probably not the wisest choice to go down anyway.
No.
But the fact that you don't have to, like, I remember I remember my mom one day particularly, like, I was sitting at the computer playing RuneScape. I was like 9 years old. And I don't know, she asked me something kind of like rude, kind of like, what you're doing right now is this beneficial? I don't know, something along the lines of like, is this benefiting you in any way? Like, maybe you should go outside or like do some extra homework or something like that. But I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to ignore that and just keep playing my game because I'm addicted to it. But yeah, it's weird to think that that's kind of changed now in a way.
Absolutely. Like, I think growing up, I'm not sure how old you are. I'm 29.
I just turned 27. Yeah.
Yeah. So we grew up kind of in the age where like the internet was a thing, and I had a PC when I was quite young, fortunately, and the internet and that, and played RuneScape and such. But back then we didn't all have, smartphones and iPads and all that kind of stuff. I had an Xbox original. I played online on Halo 2 and Halo 3 on the 360, that kind of stuff, and that was my like gateway into the internet as well as with old school with RuneScape back in the day. But I think I did a lot of going outside, and I played sports growing up, and I socialized on my bike. I live in a little village, have done my whole life, so grew up knowing all my friends and going out a lot. And I think it was very different. But my parents definitely, we had like the watershed kind of 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. my internet would go off. My dad like put settings into the router, or before I had my own PC, I'd share with my brother, and we'd take like shifts, an hour at a time.
Yep.
He'd be killing the white knights in the fortress and Falador, safe spotting and free to play, and I'd be going on my little free to play PK into the wilderness and listening to old school rock music and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, my parents definitely were the same. Like, you're spending way too much time on the PC. Are you doing your homework? What do you want to do? What you're doing. And even when I went to university as well, like I was still playing the game. I never really stopped. I started playing when I was, like I said, about 10 or 11. And I had breaks, of course, when I played other games, like I mentioned, maybe Call of Duty 4, Halo 2 and 3. But even through university, like all the way up until until now, basically, I've always kind of gone back to RuneScape. And I'd say since I was probably about 14, 15, pretty much exclusively played, maybe 16. But yeah, it's definitely a different generation. It's interesting you mentioned that. Like a lot of kids nowadays, they'll grow up watching YouTube and having all this stuff, and it definitely is something that they'll be like, or influencers on TikTok or Instagram. I don't know. I'm a bit of a boomer. I don't I don't use those platforms myself.
Yeah.
But it is a very different world compared to what we grew up in, for sure.
It's such a different world that I remember the only real marketing to kids at the time, and I mean now it's just every YouTube channel that's based on like stuff for kids. I mean that is now where every sponsorship's going, I bet. But it used to be watching tunes on Saturday morning and stuff like that, and you just have commercial breaks. And also McDonald's, I mean, they used to have Happy Meals. At least in America, they would really push those Happy Meals. They wanted to get those millennial kids like in McDonald's so that it familiarizes, so that when they're adults, it's like their comfort place, I think.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to think that, I mean, by the time you're 2 years old, you have a iPad in your hands and you're just like basically soaking in advertisements from day one. It's weird.
And there's a lot of pros and cons. Obviously, I don't know much about the argument about of like how much time kids spend online, all the negatives of course, looking at social media too much and that, and it definitely is damaging to your mental health always being on there. But like I said, I think because we grew up in an era where we had like kind of a bit of a balance, and it wasn't quite as prevalent as today. It was completely different. It is. I never expected it. I mean, I can't imagine what it was like for even the generation before us, like when the internet was first a thing, trying to accustom to the fact that, everyone's going to have PCs in their homes and we can all connect with each other through the internet, the power of the internet.
Yeah.
Of course, loads of negatives with that, but overall, what a wonderful, wonderful thing that's been invented.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I could talk for hours and hours on this kind of topic of just, how beautiful is it really that the internet came out and there was no real there was no government really taking, I don't know, kind of restricting access and stuff. It seriously just came out of the blue and everybody has free access to everything. And there are just there's so much nuance to it. There's negatives and positives to everything. And some are extreme positives and some are extreme negatives. It's interesting.
I mean, life's all about balance, right? And of course, there's going to be, addictions and all that kind of stuff, and the security and the concerns for mental health and all that kind of stuff. But boy, are we glad that it's turned out the way it has been, because we wouldn't be here today, of course, if it was any different.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm seeing a topic here from Nick that can really nicely extend into the first question, which is, she asks, what was your initial motivation to start streaming, and what's your favorite stream moment?
Oh gosh, the favorite stream moment part is a big one because I've been around for, like I said, so long now, so it's a bit of a difficult one to pinpoint. But in terms of what made me start streaming, I guess again, like Adam, of course, introduced me to. Back then it was owned.tv actually that we started on. So he was on a different platform to Twitch entirely, and I'd watch his live streams occasionally and watch his YouTube, of course. And then he transitioned to Twitch. And then I had some other PKer friends, a guy called Pitiful RS back in the day, which I don't know if anyone's going to remember that guy, but he was a risk fighter that I got along well with. So I watched him on Twitch, and I just thought, I'm making YouTube videos for fun anyway, for my community of like my clan in game, and just to have some fun and as a hobby. So why not try streaming it? And like I said, it's 10 plus years ago now, so it's hard to remember. But I guess just again, like for fun, right? Just to chat to people. I was watching what Adam was doing and other people were doing. I was like, oh, this looks really enjoyable. Let's give it a shot. And yeah, just fell in love with it. Really entertaining in general is a really fun and rewarding aspect to do, knowing that you're making other people's days kind of better or making them smile and laugh and such. I couldn't think of any negatives of it, and just enjoyed doing it. In terms of the the biggest moment for me on Twitch, or most memorable moment, it's difficult. I'd say, like, of course, casting Deadman mode over all the years I've done so. Had so many fantastic and incredible and memorable experiences with going abroad with Jagex. And those are just, going to remember the rest of my life kind of thing. Being in America for the first time, casting in front of the big stage and such, that was always really fun with my friends. In terms of on Twitch itself, me streaming on my own platform, I guess in recent times was getting my Infernal cape on my pure Ironman. I had a bit of a blockade, like mentally, with the Inferno. I originally got my Infernal cape, my main account, years ago. during the playtest, I think I got the furthest out of everyone when we were doing the Inferno. I got to Zuck on the first day of release before anyone else did as well.
Damn.
But there's something about the Inferno that's just like it's just a massive. I don't know. You get in your head about it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm quite a confident person, but at the same time, I have my self doubts and such. And with the Inferno, I know I can do it and everything. But once you get really into it, you get far into it, you're like, damn, if I mess up now, especially on stream, when you've got all these people watching you and expecting you to get far, it's like, oh man, I just got so anxious. And a few years ago, when I was doing the Inferno, originally trying to get my cape, I had my first ever panic attack in life, which sounds stupid over a video game, right? But I was doing the Inferno and I was shaking and it just got so overwhelming. I was so stuck into it. Ended up just falling apart on stream. Had to end the stream, laid in bed for like half an hour, just like bawling. If anyone else has a panic attack, they know what I'm talking about. And it was just horrendous. So ever since that moment, it's kind of like been psychological warfare in my head. Like, man, I want to get this Inferno game, my pure Ironman, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it because it's so much harder on a one defense, of course. But I know I can do it. I've got the ability to do it. So I got my twisted bow about a month or two ago, luckily. Which I was like, right, I've got to go for it now. I can't keep avoiding it anymore. So I actually ended up getting it within 7 attempts in the end, which I was very happy with, having not done Inferno in a long time. And just that moment on stream, like with all the psychological stuff that's on my head for years about the Inferno, having done it, I just burst into tears of all the adrenaline. Like on stream, I was like, I've done it. I got it done. I was so happy over a video game. But yeah, that was in recent times. I'm very, very proud of that moment, and that was a really overwhelming and fun thing to achieve.
That's really cool. See, we don't hear that inside scoop of it.
Yeah.
Kind of. That's cool. And it came from a little video game. So very awesome.
Thank you. What about yourself?
Yeah.
In recent times, any things that stick out for you?
Oh, well, for sure last year, me getting my Inquisitor's Mace after...
Oh, yeah. What KC was that?
Well, it doesn't look great because the clip shows it's like 83 KC. Because it was day one Fasani.
Oh, yeah, I remember. It was you and Lake, right? You both got it on the first day of release, was it?
So he actually...
Or was it one after the other?
He got it the last day before the announcement. So it was kind of interesting because we pretty much got ours within a day, but because it was a 2-month stretch of them not having released Fasanis yet, it was like a 2-month ordeal. But we technically kind of got it around the same time. But for 9 months prior to Fasanis being released, I was just grinding that, but original Nightmare solo mode, and it was
screw that, dude. Yeah, like
what's that?
Oh man, I've been thinking about it now. I've got like a lot of the endgame stuff in my Ironman. I've been thinking about doing Fasanis. I've started cracking away and trying to learn it. I've got only like 15 KC, but I can't get the teleport there on my pure Ironman. So same as you, I'd have to run back and forth the whole time. It's like 12-minute kills because of my lack of DPS. So overall, got to concentrate for longer. And the mace, I mean, props to you for sticking with it for so long. It's what, a 1 in 2K or something from Fasanis? I'm guessing it was rarer from Nightmare, was it?
It's actually more common from regular solo Nightmare. It was like 1 in 1,200, but I had done like 3,000 some. Still hadn't had it. And so then by that point, I switched to Fasanis, and then, luckily within a day. So, I mean, I went dry. It wasn't absolutely astronomically dry, but the mace itself at the time was like a 400-hour item, so going any dry just sucks.
Yeah, no, that's horrendous. Props for sticking with it, and I can see why that was so memorable and such a big achievement for you. Congrats.
It builds confidence too. Even so, I wouldn't say grinding is necessarily quote unquote skillful, but it still gives you that confidence to go for those long grind items, because that is a skill in RuneScape, at least, to not burn out.
Yeah, there's an end finally, and it's achievable and such.
So
sick.
It definitely gave me that extra boost of confidence going forward. And I imagine it's probably the same for you and the same for pretty much anyone. I mean, it's the same way I felt when I got my first Infernal Cape. I felt like I could do anything. I was like, you know what? Why not go try some other difficult stuff? Because now that I've proven I can get an Infernal Cape, I mean, the rest of the game feels open to me. That's how I felt after the race.
Yeah, it makes me excited for the Raids free release as well. Like, our last big challenge was the Inferno, but how many years ago was that now? 4, 5? I don't know. It was way back. We've not had anything anywhere near as difficult as I guess for Sanis and Nightmare is kind of still got quite a high skill gap, but I think the raids free stuff's going to be really interesting with all the invocation system they're going to add in.
I'm so excited. The
Yeah.
only thing I'm disappointed in with Raids 3 is that what I've heard, and I don't even have a source to this to link it, but basically I've heard that soloing Raids 3, yes, is an option, but it's going to be like basically the equivalent of TOB soloing. Yeah, it's an option, but like you're not going to be doing it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate to hear. I think one of my favorite pieces of content in game is definitely solo chambers. It's just the mechanics and doing everything tick perfect is such a satisfying feeling. Done a lot of like I got my T-Bow at 500 KC, but which isn't that much really in the grand scheme of things. But keeping in mind that I'm pure and I did almost exclusively scaled solos, which took like an hour each. So it is a lot of fun when you get into that rhythm and you're doing everything tick perfect, and you know that if you don't make any mistakes, it's just like, yeah, I've got this down. And
it's fun.
Damn.
No, I mean, to be fair, there are a lot of invocations, so inevitably there will be some. I mean, there will be easy ways to solo it. I doubt it'll be like efficient hours-wise to go for items that way, but yeah. By the way, that whole Fasani's thing, I remember day one. I mean, it was like my first attempt, I got it down because it was very, very similar to Nightmare. And that's all I had been doing for 9 months straight. Yeah. So I just remember day one, people were like, how are you so good at this? I'm like, dude, I've been one ticking normal solo Nightmare for the past year, basically. So like this just came so naturally because I hear people, and I have a very distorted view of Fasani's as well because of it. Because I think, Fasani's is easy. People always bring up the comparison, like what's harder, CG or Fasani's, and I'm like, CG is way harder, but then they're like, no, Fasani's way harder, and I'm like, my memory is distorted of that place because it's just so natural. It just felt, I just slipped right into it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like RuneScape is one of those games where, of course, there are really high skill ceilings and such, but at the end of the day, it's, if you want to have a good understanding of the tick system, and it's point and click, and if you do enough of anything, you can become like an absolute pro at it and just make it very second nature to yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How was that journey, by the way, of learning solo raids? Because you've always been a PKer, it felt like.
Yeah, so I guess in general, my introduction to Ironman was back in 2015-16. I'd been exclusively a PKer since I started playing RuneScape. Well, not exclusively, but I played as a main back in when I was a kid for a year or 2 years, I think. I think I got to level like 84. I had my Abyssal Whip, my D-Med, my D-Skirt because it was cheaper than D-Legs back in the time. That's the only reason why. My rune plate and all that, Obby Shield, and I'd enjoy merching at Falador East Bank. And my goal on that account, my main back in the day, I was just like, I want to get a Santa hat. I want to get my first rare. And back then, 2005, 6, whatever it was around 10 mil GP, which was like free. And I was getting close. I was owning in on it. And then suddenly I was hacked. But like every kid is hacked, or all of us have been hacked at some point, I'm sure, in our RuneScape career. And I logged into my account, and my ignore list was just, all it said was, like all in separate words, don't call level 3 noobs, look at what we can do, fire making. And so I looked at this guy called Fire Making, and there's this dude with like level 3 skill, like 99 fire making, all these 99s. I was like, oh my god, this guy's a genius. He somehow hacked into the Jagex systems and, he's like a hacker or something. How has he got all these high skills with no combat stats? And I was like really distraught about it. I was like, I can't rebuild now. And I decided to play free to play for a while. I thought, well, I'm not going to, just continue this MAME after losing my stuff. It's been compromised and everything. Yeah. Became a free to play PKer from 2006 to 2009, I want to say. 3 years of just getting back from school every day, running into Edgeville Wilderness or into multi with teams, and having fun with my Maple Shortbow or Rune Scimitar. And then became a member in 2009, 10 again, I think, as a pure when I was a little bit older in my teenage years. Started PKing as a little baby pure, made videos, like I said, 2010, 11. And then having just done that for almost 10 years, I guess, at that point, PKing exclusively, not really knowing any of the rest of the game, aside from maybe like doing a bit of JAD and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to explore other things. And at the time as well, I was considering going full-time, and streaming was like, what I was trying to pursue. And back then especially, like PvP was very prominent, and it got all the viewers as well. But it kind of felt like I was doing the same thing all the time. And so I was starting to not burn out the game necessarily, but I just wanted to explore other stuff. So I made my pure Ironman to try and explore other things. And the name PureSpam, of course, always playing a pure for so many years. I thought, this could be interesting. and yeah, ended up just kind of falling in love with the game mode. I was so inefficient when I first started playing back then, though. I like chopped 10,000 U logs and picked 10,000 flax and spun them into bowstrings, made the U longbows, alked them all after watching like Boaty's one-man army, all that kind of stuff.
I bet you had more fun then back then, though.
It was so good. Yeah, like we didn't have farming contracts, all that kind of stuff. I had so many like obstacles in the way of my pure Iron Man journey back then, especially. For example, getting like range potions when I could finally get them, getting dwarf weeds before we had farming contracts as like a low-level Iron Man was nearly impossible. I remember how I got them in the end. I was like 56 combat doing Zora, and there was like a one in some. I don't know, it was not that uncommon, but there was like a drop to get the dwarf weed seeds, I think it was, or maybe it was the weeds. I'm not too sure, but I would like grind that out, like hoping that I could get some range pots to keep doing Zora and all that kind of stuff. But I'm kind of going on a tangent. What was the original question again?
I don't even know, to be honest. But oh yeah, it was kind of like you getting into solo raids. That was it.
Oh, solo raids. Yeah. Okay, so I guess at that point I'd played Iron Man for quite a few years. I was endgame. And it was actually Soup's guide that really taught me the most. It's the guide I always recommend to people. His 4-to-1 guide's sick. And I used to watch, of course, as we mentioned before we started the cast, Skidler. I used to watch his streams. I've been friends with Elliot for a long time. Love his live streams in the mornings. And he did solo raids for so many years, going for his Twisted Bow, of course. And just loved looking at it, especially the 4-to-0 method. It just reminded me of, PKing, hybriding, like switching constantly. I thought, this is something I want to do. And of course, as well as that, efficient hours played wise, if I wanted to get a Twisted Bow, and all the items from Chambers, then I'd have to do it, a bit different. If I did team raids, getting like 15k points a raid, it wouldn't have been that great for me, especially with other people kind of carrying me, less chance to get the items. So I started to learn on my main, did a couple of raids, brought in like a ton of staminas, and learning the timing of the head, moving back and forth. And eventually learned how to solo, started doing scaled solos very shortly afterwards because I guess on the pure, it was kind of like much more worthwhile. Doing no preps on the pure is possible and doable. And the only problem is, you want to get an overload early, right? From like Hectorn or Mutterdile or something. And Mutterdile destroys you on a pure. If I was to bring like 10 brews into the raid, I could sometimes end up using like 8, even prayer flicking like Prey Melee and Mage with the big one as well. Just trying to chop down the tree kind of thing. Yeah. And then Tectorn is like sometimes for a pure, especially or something of attack or 8 attack is like a, I don't know, 10-15 minute room. So it just didn't make much. If my hammers didn't hit, it didn't make much sense. And then I can't do the Spuler because I'm 45 prayer, so I don't have redemption. So I was really limited. Started doing the scaled solo, started like 1+1s. I'd use my main to like kind of run through the raid and kind of set up some rooms to make it a bit easier on my supplies so I could save a lot of stuff, obviously on the Iron Man, not wanting to dig into things sometimes. Then stretched that out to 1+3s, I think, and 1+4s in the end. So I could just, because my damage on a pure is obviously less than a main, especially in the scaled solos, the hand wouldn't cripple. So the only bane of my existence at that point was doing agility, which I cannot stand doing rooftops. I just do not find them that fun. So after every stream, I'm having to like spend an hour, especially at Relica course, which I'm currently on. It's like 10 grace marks an hour, just to get like 6 staminas to do this 1+3 raid that lasts an hour or so. It was pretty torturous, but just ended up falling in love with it. And like we said earlier, like the tick system, kind of when you're doing everything right.
It's addicting.
It just becomes so fun. So I think for sure, in terms of my Iron Man, even though I've got, I think 4 out of 5 now, I'm missing the Elder Maul still. I still really enjoy doing raids, and I'll happily keep grinding out for that last item that I want. Not that it's that useful anywhere, but just to say that I've completed Chambers as a, for the pure that I want to do.
That's incredible. We're going to kind of take a little shift here, and I think this is going to be a broad topic, but Mason Breeding, who was just on the previous Sae Bae cast, is asking.
Love Mason.
He is a cool guy, very intelligent, very bright, and last week was definitely a pleasure having him on. Just really nice guy, just awesome.
Yeah.
He asks, what are your thoughts on the future of PvP? And this is a very broad topic that we will be going into for a little bit. But so I also saw a tweet from the old school Twitter account that said the PvP is having a soft launch on Wednesday, or I guess tomorrow. And then next week will be the full-on release. And so I guess we'll kind of like mix in PvP Arena with that. But yeah, what is the future of PvP?
It's a difficult one. It's very broad, like you mentioned. So I'm a very optimistic person, maybe sometimes a bit naive. I still love PKing. I do PK every single day still. I still do it off stream as well. I try to put in a few hours in the evenings after streaming Ironman, even though I've, kind of gone full-time Ironman streamer the last few years. I do still love PvP to bits. It's my favorite thing to do, especially Dead Man mode when that comes around. The future of PvP, it's like recently, for example, you mentioned that PvP Arena is coming out. Soft launches tomorrow, like a beta where you can't get rewards from it, but we can test it out for a week. Then the real one comes out next week. But with the Arena, for example, the pulse system is the biggest kind of obstacle, I'd say, with getting changes, updates into the game. It's a real difficult one. I think we have like 3 rewards coming out, all of which aren't really that enticing. I guess the ring imbues is the best thing for a lot of PKs that want to risk their rings and don't want to sit in AFK Nightmare Zone for an hour or whatever it is to get the imbue back. But it's so hard. Like we had a recent update last year, I think it was now, or early this year, which was the PJ timer coming out, which has just kind of split a lot of the community up as well. A lot of people have kind of quit in the teams because they can't, do their fall-ins and they can't PK with friends like they used to. Wilderness is kind of in a stale state because for so many years now we haven't had updates for PKing, and any updates we've had have been very minor, quality of life, albeit some of them have been really nice. For example, the key update we had, like demo mode keys to PvP worlds and Wilderness, that's a really cool thing that happened that we waiting for years to see. But in terms of the future, I saw recently RuneScape 3 made their Wilderness safe and like opt in, which is something I never thought I'd see. And I really hope the day doesn't come in RuneScape where we get that, because for me, even though I'm an Iron Man and such, like old school it's just so nostalgic, so iconic of the game. There's not many other MMOs out there where you've got this kind of risk it all, win it all mentality, especially now that death mechanics have changed in the game. But as the game goes on, I think the PKers, especially, a lot of PKers are very casual players, and due to lack of updates, like any game needs updates, right? Like that's why the game's grown and gone further, and PvP's just constantly been kind of put to the bottom of the list, of course, despite how important it is for both advertisement in terms of like, YouTube videos, streams. For many years it was the top, and even still today, despite Iron Man kind of and just main game progress being so predominant from the player base, those PK and streams and videos still do absolute bits, especially demo mode always gets such insane viewership. It's a great marketing tool. So long story short, I'm hopeful that we can still get some good stuff coming. I mean, we have the Wilderness boss rework coming soon, which is all going to be multi, which will replace the old multi-revs hotspots. Hopefully some of the clans come back and we can have that kind of sense of being able to PK with friends again and have some fun doing that. But we need meta shifts, right? Like people get so accustomed. People in PvP are so damn good now. For years, I felt like as a PKer and a high-risk PKer for so many years, I felt like I was at the top, and there were like maybe a bunch of people that could obviously compete with me and such, but for the most part, I was in that point-something percentile of the game. And now, most of the PKers are kind of in that bracket, and there's a lot of people that are just nuts, and so it's so difficult to get into PKing. I hope the PvP arena helps, but equally, it's like the ELO system is going to be nice, so that PKers can kind of fight people with their own skill gap. But when there's no rewards, it's going to be difficult to kind of get people into it. The MMOs in general, my thought process of it is you want progression, right? You want to put your time in and you want to get something out of it. And for PvP or PKing, it's always like you're making money, you're risking money to make money. You can't really get levels up apart from like a bit of combat stats and such. And you can't get like, unique drops or collection log things. It's just simply a high risk, high reward. And unless the Wilderness gets this high reward again, because it's so imbalanced now, we have so many safe options in the game. Vorkath, Zora, Nex, Chambers, Tob, like there's such little kind of risk involved. Why would the average player want to go out of their way to go to somewhere where they can die and lose their money and not make progress in the game? And it's the same for like even PKers getting into it now. If everyone's so good, why would you want to go and die like 100 times to barely get a kill, or have people at the rev caves that you're trying to kill, and you've got this like, you've got salad robes set up and they just got a bulwark and they just pray mage and they've got 10 brews on them and 99.9% of the time they get away. The future of PvP, it's difficult. I think the biggest important thing we need is, like I said before, the high reward to entice people in. The ecosystem of the Wilderness has always worked in terms of people want to go there for the high risk, high reward aspect, and without that, it's going to die, the Wilderness specific. As for PvP and player versus player, like PKing and such, even then there needs to be some kind of like extra progression idea. We used to have Bounty Hunter for years, and it got removed, of course, because the Bounty Hunter 2 system was just abused and kind of gold
Yep.
farmed into the ground, which was very unfortunate. I wish we had the reversion back to BH1 at least, rather than the removal altogether, because we just had thousands, if not tens of thousands of players and accounts that were just rendered useless then, at least with Bounty Hunter 1. Like, if you were kind of dying a lot and losing to people, you'd get that one kill and you'd maybe generate an emblem, which would give you like 150k or something, or you had that kind of progression of wanting to risk the tier 1 to the tier 10, and that was really fun. I don't see many more people getting into PK. I think LMS helped a great deal. It was huge. I think the Wilderness boss rework is going to be a really good one because it's multi and people can PK with friends and all that kind of stuff, as long as the reward is there. I think the biggest obstacle to PvP right now is still the poll system. Like this, I don't like the poll system in general. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a PK and also I'm a pure, and everyone hates pures too. So a lot of the stuff that I personally want in the game sometimes doesn't pass. But the 75% threshold definitely makes it really difficult for a lot of good, positive change to come, and that's not necessarily from a thought of the players, of course. Like, that's the whole point of the poll system, is to vote for your own personal beliefs and what you think is going to be better. And why would, the average player that doesn't want to PK want to vote in items that make it easier for them to die, or see PvP updates which encourages more people to go to the wilderness? It's such a difficult one. Obviously, we had the DMM thing recently as well. I think seasonal is always going to be a thing in RuneScape because, again, like viewership and resubscriptions, people bonding up accounts to play DMM for fun, even if you're not like a PK, having that kind of high risk scenario and watching YouTube videos, wanting to get stuck in and have that whole fresh server kind of feel and new sense of progression is always really enticing. But the final being DDoSed again recently, and that being a bit of I understand why now they didn't want to stream the finals themselves because of the issues. I think that might be the nail in the coffin for demo mode final tournaments. I hope they go back to a invitational kind of style. Like, many years ago, I think it's 2017 now, we had the All Stars event, which was like 20 creators that all got flown out to Jagex, and it got held at ESL, which is like a big studio for doing competitive gaming events such as CSGO and such. And that was a really fun event to take part in, as well as I think a lot of people enjoyed watching that. And maybe with the ELO system we've got coming with the PvP arena, potentially there'll be like some room for that to have invitational stuff. But in terms of like anyone can join, 2,000 players get mashed into this big mix or whatever, I just it's hard to see it happening again on the scale that it's happened before, unfortunately, due to bad eggs in the community. People want to DDoS it and see the world burn and such.
Yeah,
it's kind of unavoidable.
I do understand the world, unfortunately, now, and how people can be, mainly because of the internet. But like, Jesus Christ, like, can we just have a nice event without some dumbass? Like,
yeah, it's bad. I don't get it. It's like, it's unfortunate because especially those events it's beneficial to the people I think that are watching it as well, or the PKers that want to do it. But I guess the clanning system in RuneScape, there's just so much competitiveness that then gets taken outside of the game itself, with DDoSing, with attacks and personal shit outside of the game. I don't know. It's a lot of weirdos, man. It's a lot of weirdos on this game.
Yes.
And equally, maybe it's not like clans DDoSing. Maybe it's just like I said, a couple of bad eggs that are just some kids in basements or whatever well, not kids, but people with kids mentalities that just think they can do this shit and get away with it and such, which I'm sure some of them probably have done, but it's real shitty. I think the worst part for Jagex as well is all the people that complain on Twitter and such, or just don't understand, or Reddit. They're like, wow, Jagex said they'd put all these tools into stopping DDoS attacks entirely, and it was all for nothing. We had to wait so long, and albeit we did have to wait way too long for the rerun. But at the end of the day, that's why a lot of other games, such as CS, League, why they have these in-person competitions and they don't have like massive things online, because no matter what you do, there's always that risk that things can get DDoS, especially in a public world that you can see from a world list. People can find that IP relatively easily.
Yep.
It's always going to be an issue, and as the years go by and technology increases and access to all this kind of stuff and booters and all that kind of stuff keeps going, I don't think that's going to change. But I really do hope they do more invitationals, or maybe have like some kind of private world with just like the top ELO players from the PvP arena, for example, put on some spectacles, make some content for people to watch, or do some invitationals from just players that they know, or creator invitationals, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know the future of demo mode. I really hope we see seasons back again, because like I said, they're really enjoyable. But in terms of PvP, will it ever be as great again as it used to be? I think the answer is simply no. But there's so much more to the game, right? Like I've fell in love with Ironman mode and all this other stuff like skilling, PVMing, account progression as well, and I really do hope, obviously, that we get more updates and we have these things come in. And I'm optimistic about some things like the boss rework, but ultimately, I think the biggest thing that's going to stop it all is just the poll system. It's just so difficult, and the player mentality has just shifted. Really, like we're not all kids that don't know about the game anymore, and most people want to progress and kind of play the game for different reasons, and that's totally fine. But for those that do want that high risk kind of gameplay, I really hope that things do keep happening. I will say credit to Jagex, even though we've had years and years of it being neglected and kind of at the bottom of the barrel updates. This past 6 months or so, we've actually for the first time had a development team, which is a couple of developers, I think, or a QA tester and a couple of devs who are exclusively working on PvP. Those are the guys that have kind of done the PvP arena, that are doing the boss rework, that have got some other stuff hopefully down the line, maybe the Wilderness expansion years to come, which was a cool thing to come out of the game jam that the JMods did. So I'm still excited for some future updates, but to be completely realistic, I don't think RuneScape PvP is ever going to be as huge as it used to be, but I don't think it's going anywhere either. Hopefully, I don't think it's going to become like RS3. At least I hope. Maybe in 10 years, 5-10 years, I might be completely wrong, but in the next few years, I don't think it's going to be completely vanishing, that's for sure.
So I have a couple things just to bring up that you kind of mentioned. First is the polling system, and second is the wilderness bosses. So you said the wilderness bosses will all be in multi, is that correct?
Yeah, my understanding is that they're all going to be in multi, which kind of surprised me because I
Yeah.
thought they might have a few in solo as well. But on the plus side, and sorry, I went on such a big tangent talking about wilderness PvP stuff. There is just so much to talk about.
Yeah, no,
I'm probably repeating myself a little bit. There's just, I
I'm
can just
here
go
for
on.
it. I'm here for it.
I can just go on forever talking about it. But yeah, the wilderness. Go on, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, what is considered a wilderness boss? Is it just the main three, Vedion, Venenatis, and Callisto, or is it including Chaos Ellie and those demi bosses?
I really hope Chaos Ellie stays as it was, personally, because it's such an iconic, kind of nostalgic boss.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it'll probably be Scorpia, Vetian, Callisto, and Venenatis, I think, would be the ones that are changed. And they were originally designed to be multi-bosses.
Mm-hmm.
It's just due to janky design and kind of bad mechanics that people have kind of... And the fact that they are broken as heck. You know, Venenatis can literally hit you 100 damage through prayer.
But that really was the beauty of original wilderness bosses, because I mean, I can't fully know the timelines. I could look it up, but I think they came around Ironman mode, maybe a little before, maybe a little after. I think it was before. But to think that, a RuneScape, old school RuneScape at one point did not have Ironman mode. In fact, like, it made perfect sense to just have some really obnoxious, crazy bosses that can just smack you up, because there was no like, oh my god, like somebody ran in the kill, now I'm not gonna get the drop. You know, the whole game was revolved around, hey, like get your buddies out here, let's go, like let's kill this thing. And then everyone started like developing, how do I get this monster outside of its zone, and then we can like lure it to singles and stuff. It's kind of interesting, but.
Yeah, well, like in term compared to every other monster in the game and every other boss that's come out, I think it's kind of like, it's just the outlier, right? Like everything else has a way you can do things, whether it's chambers for Sannies or Vorkath or whatever it is. There's like mechanics, if you get them right, you don't get dealt a load of damage, but with those bosses, you're just getting absolutely destroyed, and to the point where, especially in the wilderness, when you need your supplies, like it just doesn't make sense to kind of like try and get one kill and you're down 15 brews, and then a PKer comes and kicks you in the face, and you're dead for all your loot that you've just almost got, or whatever.
So,
but yeah, they're all going to be multi, so it's going to replace the Revenants, hopefully.
I get nervous of them all being multi, and that's my own thing, mainly because let me also just say, this is coming from an Ironman's perspective. So I'll just preface all that, because I exclusively play Ironman mode. And so, yes, my views are a little skewed occasionally. And I try to take a step back occasionally and see the broader picture. But there are a lot of Ironmen that play this game now. And what I've seen personally, and I had this discussion with... I can't remember who I had this discussion with. But it was basically like the Wilderness Slayer Cave, they came out with. It's all multi. And so, like, if you're in a room, you see a white dot, you hit your gnome seed pod. You don't question it, even if it's a level 3 scout or bot. That's first of all, that's a thing on its own. I don't know how those things are legal, just hopping every 24/7 nonstop. But yeah, I get nervous because now I'm looking at, okay, I don't know what the rewards will be. I don't know if they're going to come out with new transmogs or new pets or whatever is coming out, new rewards. I don't think what I think, and I could be wrong on this, you might have something to add, but I'm pretty sure they're trying to stay away from adding uniques into the wilderness. They're trying to keep it like more GP focused, like crazy GP, but not necessarily like essentials for quote unquote Ironman or, anybody else that's kind of just wanting to get their item for raids, their dragon pick. But it gets me nervous because, okay, now I'm imagining I go out in the wilderness, I start killing this boss. I see 3 dots log in, just insta-tele. Now, yes, there probably is a good reason, and it's bringing back multi. I do think multi's cool. I do think it's cool, and it really just depends on the rewards from these bosses. But like, damn, I just don't find that good gameplay. It's in fact, okay. It's just it kind of just removes the PvP. It's just, can you hit your teleport in time to just avoid all PvP, basically? It's, I don't know.
I'll expand a little bit more with what I know so far. So first of all, quickly about the Wilderness Slayer, because that's something I forgot to mention. The Wilderness Slayer buff. I did Wilderness Slayer on my Ironman Pure pretty much exclusively to 93. And I did a lot of that pre-Wilderness Slayer update. I did a lot of it even without the Blaren's Keys update as well. The Wilderness Slayer cave, it should have been multi-plus in my opinion, where you can hit things in multi, but you can only be attacked by one person. The fact that it's multi everywhere, you're right, it's just way too high risk for the reward that you get. It's also not enough reward. I know that Poison Potion made some videos recently which were very good about like how much he could make. But from my personal opinion and like from doing it, it's really nice to have the cannon in there, for example, when you're doing burst tasks, which is awesome for stuff like Dust Devils and Abyssal Demons. But still, the GP per hour should be way higher for the risk associated. Like Laren's Keys are only a little bit marginally better than Brimstone ones. Like 30% more or something. I don't know what the exact number is, but I was hoping that it'd be better than that. And yeah, I get what you mean about having to teleport away straight away. My understanding for the Wilderness Boss rework, and this is at least how I hope they do it, when it comes to Ironman specific, and this is the problem they made with the Revenant Boss that came out. So the Revenant Boss that came out, if you hit it as an Ironman and anyone else hits it, you don't get the loot. I think the Wilderness Boss rework is going to be like a boss in raids, for example, where you get like points and you get a chance of loot kind of thing. So you can do it with other people, and you don't have to solo it as an Ironman. Yeah, and of course the game is like, it's an MMO, like you want to play with other people and such. And I know that you did a ton of revs, right?
Yeah.
Pre singles as well, like a crazy amount. So you know what it's like, and how much fun it can be to like anti-PK with friends.
Yeah.
And such. I made a thread a couple months ago. Sorry, I can't pronounce my THs. I made a thread. About the Wilderness Boss rework and how I'd like to see it personally done. And this was with the understanding that it would be kind of single, which is why I thought they were doing, because they were doing the PJ timer, of course, and I thought they was going to like kind of sling into that so that players had like a bit of a fairer chance to get away and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But the mechanics that I hope they adopt from my suggestions as well was that you kind of want to be in an anti-PK setup. And for example, like ice spells might have like 100% damage and accuracy increase on the boss. You want to like kind of simulate tri-breeding. So like the Nilo boss in TAB, a bit like that, which kind of teaches players how to switch, and you're kind of in that mentality that you're constantly changing gear between range and mage or whatever it may be. And then if someone does come and try and hit you, you are geared up to hit back. Maybe Dragon Ball E's have like a huge like proc chance or something increased. So or like from a rune crossbow, for example. Yeah. It's like you are in like kind of basic setup. Maybe you're risking with Zerishan robes or something, or Mystic robes, a couple 100k at most. Mm-hmm. But you're making like, upwards of 5 mil plus an hour. Sure, you might get hit a bit and you might have to tack back. But at least if you're with friends and you're able to fight back, and in a gear setup that isn't like, going to mean that you're just completely useless, have to just put on your bulwark and tank. I'm hoping that might kind of make it feel a bit fairer for people that are trying to kill the boss, as well as make it a bit more fun. Like, you don't just have to try and hit your seed pod. You can actually, go with a group of friends that your mates, maybe your clan, maybe a small group of like 5 to 10, or maybe, if you want to go with like 30 people, you can do, but obviously then your GP per hour is going to be a bit slower. Yeah. Then you are pretty much invincible unless a massive clan logs in. So I think that balance thing is going to be really interesting if they do it that way, which I think is what they're going to do.
That is brilliant. I'm not going to lie. I have a big smile on my face. I'd love hearing brilliant ideas like that. I think that's actually brilliant to have a point system out there. So It's now no longer if one person logs in here, or not even one person logs in here. If somebody previously had logged in and you log in as an Ironman and it has that little red cross out symbol that says, oh, you're not going to get loot.
Yep.
That point system is absolutely brilliant because it's just time based out in the wilderness, just hitting the boss here and there and you get your little point stack or whatever. What I would really hope, this is, I'm not exactly sure how you would redeem those rewards. I'm not sure if you would lose the points if you didn't make it out in time, because I personally think this is absolutely coming out of. I haven't weighed the pros and cons.
When I say points, I mean like a chance to get loot. Sorry, not like points that you can then redeem outside the wilderness.
Okay.
I mean more so like doing damage gives you like a chance at reward. Everyone gets a reward split up, a bit like Nex, right?
Yeah.
Like
okay,
Nex,
okay,
if you've got a small team, you're getting like, much better rewards per person compared to a bigger team. It's kind of split up a bit more. But there is the option that still, if you're an Iron Man, you can, get a loot. And albeit, like, I'm sure there'll be a meta of a certain amount of people makes it way more, good to do compared to having like 20-man next teams. Having like only a couple people is a way better chance to get items. But
okay, I misunderstood.
Like you mentioned,
I'm glad you clarified that. I just want to bring up. I do think, however, it would be kind of cool, and I'm already very appreciative of the fact that you can, go in kind of like a original Nightmare, where you can just mass with anybody as an Iron Man. But I also think, what would be really cool is if just the damage you deal would build up some points, and then there could be like some sort of Laren's chest, like an actual hotspot where you redeem those points, and it could just
that's a cool idea.
It doesn't need to be like, oh, you spend this many points. It could just be chances, like how many times you get to loot it. But
yeah, I like stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
and
that sounds cool.
I think like the big thing about the PJ timer, especially, which is like a very controversial issue, I think making players feel like they have a fairer chance, or like gearing up in tribrid gear to fight a tribrid boss, which then you can defend yourself from other PKers for. I feel like that's the big thing with people not liking the wilderness. You feel like you're just like always kind of at the lower end of the hunting. You're a fish in a big sea full of sharks that are just you've got no chance of escape kind of thing. So hopefully by doing it this way around, people will feel like it's fair. They can get into PKing easier. They might end up loving it and falling in love with the whole high risk, high reward system. The most important thing from the wilderness boss is going to be high GP per hour. I think they've said in Q&As they plan to move the D pickaxe to other areas, which I have no problem with, and most PKers do not care about.
Yep.
At the same time, we think the wilderness. The wilderness is like an important part of the game. I think it should always remain as the high risk, high reward, and because it's part of the game, there should be incentives to go. And as for uniques, like I think there could be uniques in the wilderness, and the wilderness bosses could have uniques, but I don't think they should be best in slot skilling, items that you can only get from going there. Yeah, so I really hope they just kind of surprise us and they're like, oh, by the way, actually we're adding a new unique, and it's a PvP item, which obviously you'll have collection log players that are like, oh, now I'm forced to PK. But equally, if you're going for collection log, if you're going for everything in the game, you can't complain that things in the game you don't like, because that's the whole point of it, is to try everything in the game, right? So hopefully there'll be items that do pertain just to PvP, a bit like the VLS, right, which can only be used in PvP. Or things that aren't necessarily that great outside of PvP, where you can use them in other areas of the game, but they're just not that great. That'd be really cool to see. So I really hope they just wow us and kind of surprise us with that. Equally, there's the poll system, so whether or not that part, anything they suggest passes, I have to wait and see. But I'm really optimistic about the wilderness boss rework. I just really hope they do make it really rewarding, because that's the main reason I feel like so much wilderness content isn't kind of good and that useful compared to the rest of the game, because the risk of going to the wilderness always greatly outweighs the reward. And the risk should always be there, of course. There should be a lot of risk, but the reward is the part that they can really change easier. And of course, there's like the whole gold farming part and people like botting and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if it's a boss that you've got to actually not just hit like revs, right?
Yep.
It's not like a bunch of gold farmers and bots are going to be there. And even if they are, I personally would much rather having bots and gold farmers in the wilderness where they can be killed and they can be like, a part of content for players that are getting into PvP, as opposed to being in safe zones, competing with other people's resources and all that kind of stuff. I'd much rather than be in the wild.
That's a good point. Yeah. Interesting. But I do think that as long as And I've kind of seen this now. First of all, I think that whole idea is great, and I really do actually hope it passes. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I always kind of thought how cool it would be just to have, like a nightmare basically, but in PvP. So you kind of can like bolt your friends here and there, but it's like,
Yeah, you could. Wait, what? You're getting the most kill percent? It's a bit like Cork, you can see like how much damage you've dealt.
Yeah.
Like, what? You're beating me for MVP? No, you're not.
See, that's
Course,
what
like,
that's what they need to do. They need to have a little bar above every player's head to show the percentage of like how much they've done.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But like stuff like that would be just it's just fun, right? It's just meant to be fun. And even Ironman can go, and obviously there's the whole part about Ironman gonna lose their items. It's a bit more annoying for Ironman to get back their stuff. But like we have, the blighted restores from LMS that you can use, the blighted food that you can use in the wilderness. So realistically, you're not using your hard food and potions as much. Hopefully they add more blighted supplies. And I think the bosses themselves, they've said like on Twitter on Q&As, that they want them to be like have mechanics, and that if you get them right, you're not really going to be using supplies. So your supplies are for PKers. You're going to be well equipped, and hopefully in PK gear at the same time, that you do have a bit of more of a fighting chance to kind of guard yourself, or maybe even if you're not an Iron Man, I suppose as well, make some more money from killing people with your friends. Yeah. So I'm really excited for that. So there are things from PvP, like although I said earlier it's like kind of scary sometimes to look at the game state and how things don't pass. There are some things in the work. Hopefully BH as well is returning at the end of the year, or they're talking about looking to bring it back, which I think is singly like one of the best updates that could happen to get more people into PKing. The target system's really fair, and there's like an extra reward for kind of killing players. But yeah, there's some cool stuff coming. I really look forward to the boss rework, and the PvP arena a little bit lackluster because of the fact that, of course, we don't have the as many rewards as we'd hope to see. Even the cosmetics would have been cool to go for my Iron Man. A lot of them were like some of my best in slot items, like the claws and the Elder robe kits and stuff. Bit sad they all failed, but still hyped for some things coming for sure.
Yeah, let's actually talk about it. Let's talk about PvP arena a little bit more. So So if you would explain to those that are, I mean, I'll be completely honest. I know enough about PvP Arena, but I don't really know the specifics of it. So if you would like to just kind of explain your thoughts on the specifics and kind of like share what you're excited about specifically.
Yeah, so originally when the PvP Arena was kind of proposed and stuff, again, one of my suggestions that I had many years ago was a bit like I don't know if you played World of Warcraft before.
No.
But in WoW they have this system of like Dungeon Finder and like PvP Finder, I think it is. And basically, I don't play WoW, but basically you join a queue to get into a fight, and when the battleground or the fight is ready, you can then like enter, and you can do this from like anywhere you are, I think, and get teleported to the area. And I think that's what they're going to try and do with PvP Arena. I could be wrong. I haven't read like the most recent blog about it, but I'm hoping that's what they do. So it's more like a distraction diversion. Like let's say you're doing your Slayer task, or you're doing some potion making in the bank or whatever, or killing some bosses, and then every like 30 minutes to an hour, or whatever it is, your queue's ready. You can go into a fight. You get teleported, get told to like go into a safe zone, hop worlds. You go to this world. You get given stats. You get given gear, a bit like LMS, and then you fight 1 versus 1. Winner gets some ELO and get some points to buy the rewards, and then straight after that fight, which takes, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, you get teleported straight back. It's optional as well, of course, so like, hopefully that's like a really nice way for people to get into PKing without it interrupting kind of their normal gameplay, or having to worry about teleporting to LMS and jumping into an LMS game and having to wait for the games to start, that kind of stuff. Hopefully it just becomes a part of the game, like a bit like the game mini game thing we've got on the side and the grouping system. I think it'll be kind of in there. The other thing to happen from the PvP Arena that I'm really looking forward to is the ability to set up your own tournaments. So I think JX and the old school team want to kind of have a bit of a grassroots approach to encourage and kind of give creators and communities the power to run their own tournaments a bit better. Because right now, the only system we have is either a free-for-all fest in the wilderness where people can get, kind of crashed and ragged and all that kind of stuff, or the duel arena, which again, the same thing can happen. And in general, the duel arena isn't the best spectacle to watch, right? Yeah. People can kind of get to the corners, you can't watch it all the time, and it's just annoying to set up. So the PvP arena is going to have a method of setting up to a 64-person tournament, which is just like the demo mode finals. So after each fight, I think you then can use a bank or whatever, or get your items given back to you, and you go into a different round. And it kind of it's all self-automated, so it'll be really good. There'll be like a spectator approach. So I think we're going to see a bunch of content creators, such as like the PvPers, maybe even non-PvPers as well, or even just communities in general, having these fun tournaments, using this new piece of content to be able to actually run them and have some fun with them. So I'm looking forward to that in particular out of the PvP arena. Like I said, some of the rewards, or most of the rewards, failed. So I don't see the PvP arena, the ELO system being that kind of useful for most people, or people wanting to do it over PKing or wanting to do it over LMS. But it's going to be there, and the ELO system maybe in itself, like that whole pride, that whole progression, kind of sense of feeling that you're getting better and going up in the ranks, high scores, etc., might encourage a bunch of people to compete, and maybe then Jagex can use that to do invitationals on a smaller scale, not like 2000 demo mode tournament thing, but just have like a top 50 or whatever, or top 64 of this season kind of thing, like every 3 months. That's how I do it personally. Top 64 on the ELO will then get invited onto a private world which no one else can access, kind of thing. No one knows where they are, so the servers can't be hit off as easily. That could be streamed or whatever, and be a little competition in itself. Maybe reset every 3 months of like seasons. That's how a lot of other games do it as well. So I think it's cool it's coming, and from what I've seen on like Twitter and Q&As, I think Modash has been doing a lot of work on it as well, and a lot of it does look really cool. And of course, Godash being at the helm of it gives a lot of people some good confidence that it's going to be pretty good. It is a shame about the rewards, like I said, because like I said, you need rewards and kind of progression in an MMO, especially in PvP. But hopefully, a lot of people still find it fun, and the tournament style is going to be really beneficial for a lot of players.
That's very exciting. Yeah, that's I'm glad they're making the PvP arena. Honestly, as many fuck ups as Jagex has, and as there's things that we love to complain about. It's I feel like most game communities tend to just pick on the worst of the company, like the absolute like worst things that they've done in recent years and stuff. But I mean, realistically, they're really trying, and the game we have currently, and hopefully in the future. I mean, I'm very optimistic for PvP. I'm optimistic for the rest of the game because I feel like, first of all, like the devs there know how to make fun content now. They've had good amount of testing for mini games and bosses and stuff, and what works and what doesn't work. And that just gets me really excited. And I do think, especially after talking to Mason last week, how important PvP is. And I've always understood how important it is. I mean, firsthand, I've made a couple PvP videos, or not PvP videos, but just wilderness related videos, and they always pop off. Like, people love it. But like you said it originally, it's like, I mean, it's so hard to get into, and there's not enough reward.
You're right. LMS, I think, did so much good for getting people into it. And I hope this new Wilderness boss is the exact same thing. I think, like you mentioned before, I think it's human nature sometimes to kind of focus on the negatives, or kind of the negatives to upset people more than maybe the positives can inspire people to kind of be happy. But we are incredibly, I've got to echo this statement, incredibly blessed to have the old school team that we do have, and in general, like the community we have as well. There's a lot of bad eggs and some strange people online and everything like that. Sometimes it's just a vocal minority, and I think the game is doing so good still. Of course, I think COVID helped. The one good thing about COVID, maybe for creators at least, was a lot more people inside and playing games and such. And thank God we've had RuneScape to occupy our minds and everything like that. But the game's doing really well, and we're in a really good position, I think. And like I said, the team's really trying. We have new devs exclusively working on PvP. We have some things coming. Sure, not everything passes. The poll system's still like a big blockade, and it's scary sometimes when stuff fails and everyone gets excited. We haven't got Bounty Hunter back, but I'm hoping like in a year's time from now, things are going to be very different. I hope, but again, I'm very optimistic usually and naive, and I do love this game, like we mentioned before. So I do hope all these things continue to happen, and I am excited overall.
Let's talk about the polling system, because, and I'll just briefly state before I let you answer, I do agree with you that it is limiting, and especially for PvP. I mean, that is very clear that it's very limited on the updates we can get for PvP because of the polling system. But at least for the rest of the game, that's kind of where my thoughts will be. It feels like a good little safety net. I mean, the whole 75 threshold, the whole like everyone gets to vote and things could be kind of altered slightly, but first of all, I do think everyone should get a vote, but there could also be kind of representatives to the groups of people, so that's a little bit more of an educated vote. Now, there's so much to that, and that's like very, very, very complicated to set up, but I do love the safety net because people are like, just get rid of polling completely. And that's like, like I can see the fun in that because there are positives to that. Definitely. I mean, when you wake up one morning, boom, there's this super dope update that you've never even considered like that was coming out, and now it's out, and that's just really exciting. But on the downside, I don't fully trust the team. I just don't.
Yeah.
I have a lot of trust in the team, but I don't fully trust them yet. And
I think,
it gets me nervous.
yeah, I get you. I think like the poll system in general, I do agree. I loved the idea of having a council system as well, but like some, maybe not all updates. Every update should be polled, and maybe occasionally, like every couple months, there's like some kind of update that's decided on by like a select group. Maybe it could be voted upon who that group was, or whatever. And JX can do like these occasional updates, but then it's like, where do you draw the line, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for example, I think with 99.9% of updates JX do, they pass because the old school team knows, right, what's going to pass, what isn't going to pass, what's the contentious issues. And even when things don't pass, they do try to repoll them. They do try to change them if they think it's good for the game. Sometimes things that, like, for example, what was that skill that was going to pass? They polled it like 3 times last year or 2 years ago. Warding, yeah. For example, warding. Like, if the poll system wasn't in the game, that would have come into the game. And like, regardless of my position on warding, it is cool that the community could decide and the majority could decide. Maybe 75% isn't the best number. Maybe 70% would mean that more things would come into the game. Some things that don't really have any negatives or many negatives. And to be fair, the old school team does do really well sometimes at polling things, even for PvP, that people don't necessarily think are PvP. For example, we got the manacles come into the game. There was no mention they were going to be 1 defense. And there was no mention they were going to be like, better than climbing boots for pures or anything like that. Or the kilt, the Fremnik kilt. But it was a clue scroll update. So everyone voted yes for it.
Yep.
And the same with like the new Fang coming out from Raids 3.
Yeah.
That is like a huge DPS increase for PvP in terms of NH. Like, it's like the equivalent of a Bofa, but for melee.
Oh, so, it's so accurate. Oh, yeah. It's
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, like, if that was to be polled for a PvP update, no way in hell that would pass. What? PVMers being more easily to be killed and all that kind of stuff? No way. But a raids update? Oh, yeah, get that into the game. So, like, there are ways that they can bring things in, hopefully, and I think they are smart about it. And I just hope to keep seeing that in the future for sure.
That is interesting, though, that you kind of brought that up, because Osmumten's Fang definitely will be a crazy new PvP item. By the way, oh wait, I'm losing my train of thought. It was something about Osmumten's Fang. Oh shit. Or it was something about
requirement, maybe?
Something about raids and oh yeah, this was it. So the question is really, where is the ceiling of when raids items, and we're talking years from now, but like, is there a certain point where raids items just simply cannot be used in PvP, or just in general, will there be a day where there are PvP specific items and non-PvP specific? Because what I hear, because I hear a lot from PVMers, and they think they just want crazy rewards from raids. They want to annihilate bosses. Like, they want dope rewards, but then they're always having to be balanced. Most of them are having to be balanced around PvP. Kind of like, okay, if we can start hitting random like 80s on stuff, like, I don't know, there has to always be these weird arbitrary restrictions, like a scythe, for example. It's like, oh, it can only be against like 2x2 or larger.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of almost already there. Like, the Bofa that came out is nuts. I don't really NH very much. I'm mostly a PvP like Edgeville style PKer. But when I do NH and I go against a Bofa, I'll hit them off prayer like 70% of the time, and they'll hit me off prayer like 2 times out of 50, and they'll still out DPS me because of how accurate and insane the Bofa is. It is just nuts. And then, like I said before, the Fang that's coming out is going to be huge as well. And Torva, dude, Torva is crazy. Like, at least with the Inquisitor's armors we got, that had like 30 defense, right? So it was low defense. It was cool. You could, if you did it in raids as well, used it for PVM, you'd be hit a bit more. And if you make a mistake, it's a bit more damaging. But Torva comes out, you can hit 87 in AGS in PvP. You can hit 90 claw specs. You can hit 50 plus mauls. Like, you can one hit people constantly. And it also has the defense of like Inquisitor armor. Sorry, whatever it's called, the Justicia. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts that that's in the game already. And To answer your question, like, should we have PvP specific items? Like, I like that PvP and the wilderness is a part of the game, and I don't like the idea of things kind of only being used in some areas and not in other areas, kind of thing. But at the same time, I don't think we've got a choice really. Like,
Yeah.
power creep is inevitable, right? And the teams kind of try to skirt around it by having situational items and things that have drawbacks, etc. But if we want bigger and harder bosses, ultimately we're gonna need bigger and better weapons eventually as well. And there's the concern that like old content gets kind of overshadowed by new methods. Like this new staff that's coming out is going to be really good. A bunch of God Wars Dungeon stuff, and the Bofa already and Tebow already like changed the meta completely for stuff like Zami and Bandos and such to be range based now instead of necessarily melee based. Yeah. So I think it's inevitable. I think the way the team's done it, having the game being out for 10 years, like there's been a lot of change and power shifts and such, but we're going at an okay rate. I think there will become a point, and I think we're almost there pretty much already, where certain items maybe shouldn't be used for PvP or should have exclusions. But then it gets complicated. It's like, do you have like a different set of stats where certain uses in PvP and certainly not in PvP, but equally, like you mentioned with the scythe, big bosses only or big monsters only get affected by them, and their true powers only used on certain things, or maybe you've got like a weapon that is only really good if the opponent's got like a crazy amount of defense, which you can never get in like PvP armor sets or whatever. I don't know. It's a hard one, but I do have faith in the team that when it comes to balancing, well, with the exception of Torva and both are coming out of PvP, hopefully they're gonna get there. It's a difficult one. I don't know.
To be fair, I mean Torva and Bofa, I mean those things are expensive to bring out there.
They are, yeah.
They're no joke, but yeah, they are very, very powerful. This is a question from Champions Cape. So he asked two things. I'm going to focus on the second. He asks, what are some PvP changes you would make? And then his second question is, if you had the ability to fix or change anything unpolled, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a difficult one. Changes that I would make. I'd love to see unpolled just bring back Bounty Hunter. Like I said, there were thousands, if not tens of thousands of players, like a whole community, clans and people that would log in every single day, or even alts. Like a lot of people had like PK accounts, low level builds, Obby Maulers, low level Gmaul Pures, just completely eradicated. That whole scene, I think that's been the biggest damaging update. So sometimes you think about updates like damaging the game, but the removal of updates or the removal of content single-handedly does the most, gets people to quit the game. So I'd bring back Bounty Hunter for sure, with some kind of reward system in place, even though it can be exploited in gold farm. Just make it against the rules, just actually enforce the rules. Or make it very difficult for people to actually boost it and such. It'll always happen, of course, there will be people that do it, but like look at the rest of the game. Do we nerf Zora and take all its loots because there's Zora bots 24/7 going, or do we remove a bunch of the uniques from Nightmare? There's always going to be people that are going to do that kind of stuff, and it sucks that PvP is always at the kind of end where it's like, or revs, it's like it's too much here, but it's not in other places. I don't know. I don't like that. Other updates and changes I'd make to PvP. I'd love to see. Obviously, I'm biased here because I'm a pure myself, but I'd love to see pures kind of being made great again. The only updates we've really gotten over the years, apart from updates that everyone can use of like high attack levels like Scythe and such. In terms of like gear, we had the Elder Chaos Robes a very long time ago now, which are only marginally better than God Robes, which I never use because God Robes give you a load of prayer bonus too. So I'd like to see kind of glass cannon, kind of one defense items coming out a bit more. Meds and Zerks have had loads of different things over the years. And I'd like that power shift to go back to the glass cannon build, kind of really high offense, low defense. I'd like to see more prayers come out, maybe a new prayer book, albeit not as ridiculous as, curses were back in the day with Soul Split and stuff like that. But I'd like to see some high level prayer stuff come out as well for PvP. And again, just like that whole kind of idea about the wilderness being high risk, high reward. Like, you just need to put a load of good rewards in the wild. I'm not saying that the XP per hour should be the best in the game, because then it does kind of, people do feel forced to go if they want to go for records, if they want to like be really efficient, but a bit under, what the best XP per hour is, not the best XP, but close to like, decent XP rates and making a bunch of money for the risk of being in the wilderness. I think stuff like that would bring a lot of people to the wild a bit more and kind of actually allow the wilderness to kind of become great again. I don't see it happening anytime soon to the extent that I'd love to see it happening. But if I could, that's what I'd love to see, a bit of a combination of Bounty Hunter and then Wilderness updates to make like methods for everything. For example, we have the Wilderness resource area, right, which is still pretty good for dark crabs. I think you can two-tick them, and it's a pretty chill AFK method. But I think it should be better XP per hour, or there should be other things in there for like every skill. And it's not, you're not forced to go, right? It shouldn't be like the best XP per hour, but there should be that balance of like being good XP, which makes up for the fact that occasionally you're attacked or have to leave. But equally, you're getting like good money for your time if you are risking it for the biscuit kind of thing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see. A few things.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, just talking to you for like this first hour of the cast, I'm really appreciated your nuanced views on stuff, because you actually are painting a very clear picture, and you're giving, I don't know, it makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad you kind of see both kind of game modes.
Yeah.
I mean, you've played a main, you played an iron, you played a pure, you've PK'd, you've streamed, like you've seen a lot, and you've been around forever, so I feel like you have a pretty good educated response to most of these questions, which I'm really appreciating so far.
Thank you. I think a lot of people in the PK community in general, and like as a whole, when I make suggestions, sometimes people think that I'm doing it for like my own like personal. I guess sometimes I'm a little bit biased. Of course, everyone's biased, right? Because I play a pure and I'm a PKer. But at the same time, like ultimately, especially like equally to most creators, we want to see the game flourish and do well, right? If the game does well and keeps going, I get to keep playing the game, obviously, and I get to keep streaming and all that kind of stuff. And so like at the core front of a lot of my opinions that I have and suggestions that I make is for kind of the good of the game, is what I feel personally, and like what everyone will enjoy and what will keep things going. And I think like most creators kind of see that at the forefront of our suggestions is like, we want the game to just do well and for more people to play it and keep enjoy playing it, and for the game to never die, really, because like that's the bottom line, because that benefits all of us equally. But yeah.
So here's the question, and I am completely, I mean, just, this is not my area, so you're gonna have to answer it exclusively. But Second Base asks, thoughts on unskulling builds, in parentheses 1 through 13 prayer, in the old Bounty Hunter. The auto skull mechanic essentially removed that variety. So can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, so like obviously if you attack players, you get skulled, right? You lose all your items unless you've got protect item. There's a lot of PKers that like to have unskulled builds. For example, 30 defense account is the Inquisitor build, but a 30 defense, unless you've got Inquisitor, you've got to use Snakeskin, right? Or you've got to use like Addy Armor, which is nowhere near as good. So you're kind of like, if you have a build like that, you're kind of forced to use it. Or if you're a 1 prayer or 13 prayer pure, if you're going to be sculling up, you're not going to be able to protect your G-Maul or your Obby Necklace and Obby Maul or anything like that. So I think unskulled builds are completely fine, personally. I've actually got an unskulled build. I've got a 13 prayer pure as well from back in the day, which I haven't used in years because Bounty Hunter being gone. But I think it's a really cool idea to have accounts like that. And the bottom line with those accounts is, if you don't want to fight someone that is unskulled, just don't attack them. It's not that they can do anything. They can't attack you, because then they'll skull and risk a load of money. Yep. In Bounty Hunter, if a player was unskulled, is what he's referring to, you would be able to skip your target for free without a penalty. So if you don't want to fight someone, you could just skip them. No negative to you, right? You're just like, well, you're not risking anything. But what I find, at least, and what I do when I do unskull PK, which I do even on my prayer accounts, sometimes I'll bring a load of risk, like more than most people. I might bring 2, 3 times, 5 times as much risk to use those items that are kind of like a bit more expensive. I don't want to be sculling up in them, because then I'd be risking like 100 times their risk, right? Yeah. But I want to use these items to have fun with them and to try some different accounts. And most of the time, like, again, it's their choice if they want to attack me or not. If they feel like I'm not risking enough, or it's not worth their time for me to have this extra power that I have with it by unsculling, then that's up to them. So in Bounty Hunter, what they did, randomly, I don't know why they did this, but they made it so that everyone was forced to skull. It was an automatic skull in the wilderness.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know why they did it. It was just a bad choice, basically. If they bring back Bounty Hunter, I hope they remove that, because just the fact that you could kind of skip your opponent then for free was like enough of a balancing that you weren't forced to fight those people. And again, it's like one of those changes they've made, like the removal of BH, which just kind of killed off brackets and killed off people's accounts. And people like having like unique accounts, whether it's like skillers or pures or whatever. And that's what makes RuneScape, I think, especially so unique and so interesting, is that you can make these account builds that you like see to be like, kind of personal and You kind of fall in love with being like this little unique character in the game. Like it gives the game just so much more interest to it. I think for a lot of players, myself included, if everyone's just the same character, right? We're all just max mains or max irons. Everyone's got the same gear. There's no like variance, and it's always nice to see people going for like different challenges. A lot of people make their own challenges, right? Like through content creation, like Settled's whole tile man mode, and you've got like Boaty's one man army, which eventually became like Iron Man mode as well. It's a really fun part of the game. So I think it should be encouraged, and there should be ways to do stuff like that, as opposed to just blanket like, no, you're not allowed to do this kind of PKing. So yeah, that's my opinion of it, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, that that really is a damn shame that Bounty Hunter was just completely removed. That is so fucking unfair. Like,
yeah,
it's really.
yeah.
I mean, it's hard to even see that when I just never participated in Bounty Hunter, but that really is just.
Yeah,
really
it was
unlucky.
a mistake. Like BH2, basically, the reason why it was removed, of course, as you know, is like they brought out this system which wasn't balanced, and it had like you had like tasks to do basically.
Yeah, like
So if you did
hot
this task,
zones and stuff.
yeah, so you had to do like a task, for example, not wear an amulet and a ring, or like get a kill with a special attack, or get a ranged KO, and like some of them were okay, and some of them were just like, why? Like, why am I not wearing a ring and a necklace? What is the point in this? This is just dumb. And then you get points for that. But if you were also in a hot zone, you got even more points. And they didn't make boosting against the rules. And the average player wasn't able to really like, get that much. Like constantly do these tasks as well as doing them in a hot zone. Sometimes in like the deep wilderness and stuff like that, having to re-gear and not bring certain items, or get a kill with like ranged deep wilderness only is kind of difficult because most people use, volatile staffs and AGSs and claws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Getting a range KO is real hard. So the only people that were really benefiting from this system and able to get the maximum points per hour and the maximum GP per hour boosters to the point, because they didn't make it bannable, it was just, I remember going there and the whole of Edgeville was just gold farmers, like hundreds of people. You'd get a target, and it was a gold farmer, and they'd say, skip me. And if you didn't skip them, you'd have to wait in the wilderness for 5 minutes to get another target, which was another gold farmer. So it just got to the point where, like, after a week of it, all the PKers had gone. All the PKers weren't there and were just taking part in boosting, because Jax never kind of said, you can't do this. If they made it against the rules and, like, occasionally, kind of banned a bunch of people, put some ban waves out, I reckon it would have been much better, because, like, even BH1 had its flaws, right? There were bot farms. Sir Pugger. Sir Pugger. Yeah. That's it. Made loads and loads of videos on, the bot busting and the people that would have like hundreds of accounts and all this kind of stuff. But again, like they can do changes to, like, maybe the hot zone would only be Edgeville, so they couldn't be hidden away in the corner of the wilderness for Bounty Hunter, and they couldn't be attacked by other people, and like ways that you could kill them and actually benefit from fighting them, make it harder to boost or actually ban them and such. And it is such a damn shame that they just removed it entirely and completely destroyed that part of the game.
Yeah.
It was
not only was it a part of like the game, it was also part of like streaming. I remember so many PKers would stream Bounty Hunter, and I would watch it even. I kind of enjoyed those chill Bounty Hunter streams. Just
a lot of those streamers are gone now. They just don't stream anymore, or they've moved games. Like Shy McFly, for example, she had like a clan of like 200 people, and she would have like a selling emblem system thing, which was pretty fine. And then people would come to her and buy like room pouches and stuff. Other PKers would buy them, or Ironman would buy them before we had LMS, and like a real cool community around it. And then it just went, and she just quit the game. And she's doing really well now, to be fair. She streams other games, I think. But yeah, it is crazy to think about. Like, imagine just one day they said, "Oh, we're gonna
just delete Iron Man."
Delete Iron Man from the game. Like, we don't want to do Iron Man anymore. It's damaging to the integrity of the game. Or Iron Man keep voting no to certain updates or whatever, and we keep having to do updates. Like, imagine everyone screaming about it. But with Bounty Hunter, because it was such a small portion of the community, it just kind of, it was whatever. But hey, hopefully end of the year, like they said, they're gonna look back into it and maybe we'll get it back again. So fingers crossed.
Very cool. Hunter asks, are beans best heated on the stove or in the microwave? Why? And then he also asks, favorite anime and why?
Oh my god. Thanks, Hunter. Let me think about this. So beans on the stove or the microwave? Come on, man. It's got to be on the stove. Like, our beans, I'm sure you know this, say that they're very different to American beans. American beans are wank. They're horrible. They're like in a barbecue sauce, and they have like bacon in them and all these, I don't know, they just taste weird to me, at least. In England, as part of an English breakfast, we have baked beans, which are beans in a tomato-based sauce. and it's like a bit of a meme. It has been a meme for a long, long time that I liked baked beans so much because I used to post like Twitter pictures of my baked beans on toast in the mornings, or in general, used to talk about them a lot. It's one of those like a bit like while we still play RuneScape all these years later, it's a nostalgic thing, kind of what I grew up with every day. I used to be a really fussy eater. Growing up, I could only have like ketchup or baked beans on my plate with any food that I ate, kind of thing.
Brother.
So, yeah, I've grown out of that now. Now, well into my 20s, but. Yeah, I adore baked beans on toast. I'll have them a few times a week as a breakfast or on the side when I have potatoes and sausages and stuff. On the stove, it reduces the sauce beautifully and eloquently, and in the microwave, it's just different. It just doesn't hit right.
Yeah.
As for favorite anime, I recently got into anime a few years ago. I kind of always thought like, oh, anime, ugh, I don't want to watch that. But at the same time, like growing up, I watched a lot of Studio Ghibli. I don't know if you've heard of any of their stuff. If you're into anime, it's kind of like anime meets Disney. They kind of tell the stories in quite a nice, beautiful way, and like kind of have some contrast to like real world predicaments, like the environmental impact of things and all that kind of stuff. So growing up, Princess Mononoke was my favorite anime, like movie that I watched when I was a kid for many years. And then in terms of like TV shows, anime wise, I recently watched the second last season now of what's it called? Attack on Titan. That's probably my all-time favorite. Really good show, which if anyone wants to get into anime, I recommend checking that one out. And probably Sword Art Online, which is a bit of a squishy one, a bit of a cutesy one, but that was I got some good memories of that as well. So yeah. Are you into anime at all, or no?
So I never really got into it, unfortunately, and I never had the channels really growing up that just had a bunch of anime stuff. Like I never watched Naruto or what was the other Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that was not part of my childhood. Even Avatar, it was never part of my childhood. So I mean, I see people now that are just still like they think it's. I mean, it is their god. Avatar, The Last Airbender, is their god. I mean, they are obsessed with it to this day. And there's a lot of nostalgia attached to that. It has to be. And unfortunately, I just never really got that. So my roommates in college, I mean, I had one roommate in particular that loved Attack on Titan. And to be completely honest, I'm not really even into watching shows or movies even. Like, I can watch them, but they have to be so good. I mean, because I've always just been like, I don't know. I like games more than sitting down and turning brain off and watching something. So
I get you. Yeah.
I did, however, try to watch Attack on Titan. I got through a little bit of it, and I hate to even bring this up, but it's just the truth, and so I'll mention it. Something that really bothers me about anime is the super overdone voice acting where they act like whining children. I can't stand it for the life of me. And it's like one of those like things that just like eats up at you. That is the one thing. It's like, dude, as soon as I'm in a scene where there's like a man child crying and yelling and pouting and stuff, I'm like, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like,
it's why I didn't want to get into anime for so long. Is like a lot of it just felt like so childish, and especially the over sexualization of like children and that kind of stuff. It's weird. There's some weird anime out there. And I'm not a fan, obviously, of any of that kind of shit. And that's why I didn't want to get into anime for so long. Or I didn't want, like, people would mention, oh, watch this anime or check out anime. I'd be like, that's weird, man. I'm not into that kind of thing. And then I watched, like I said, Attack on Titan. I grew up watching Dragon Ball and Pokemon and stuff like that. And end of the day, like, there's a lot of them. The medium of anime can be really good and kind of the cartoony ones. But yeah, when things get over the top, like you said, the voice acting and stuff, it really puts me off too. And there's a weird kind of corner of anime out there which isn't for me, of course. But yeah. Some of them are pretty cool. I like the fighting stuff, the Attack on Titan, etc. The
storylines themselves actually very much intrigue me. I mean, my roommate was telling me about the storyline of Attack on Titan. It sounds awesome. I think the biggest part is I'm very picky. Like just regardless of anime, if I'm watching a movie and there's no recognizable actors in it, I'm instantly already turned off by it. Kind of, I'm like, okay, this clearly is kind of budget, clearly not like the best production value, and I just kind of get turned off by it. So I'm very picky when it comes to any sort of show.
You might like have you got Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched Vinland Saga recently, which was pretty good. It's got like a historical aspect to it, as an anime, and it's not like over the top kind of thing, but it's got some cool kind of philosophical approach to some of the storylines and kind of the way the characters deal with things and kind of progress. That's one for anyone listening to the podcast looking for something new to watch. Vinland Saga on Prime. But yeah, no, I don't watch that much anime, to be honest. Nowadays, I do like Netflix though. I am a I'm a fiend for Netflix. I watch way too much. In the evenings, I'll sit in bed on my mobile watching for far too long, to be honest. But same as you, I do prefer gaming, sitting on my PC, and because we stream and all that kind of stuff, we don't have as much time compared to, I guess, the average gamer who could maybe like AFK and just
Yeah,
like
do
watch
it all
things
at
all
once.
day long. But when I'm playing RuneScape, I'm not a huge fan of skilling. I do enjoy some skilling, and I do enjoy the Ironman progress. But mostly when I'm playing RuneScape, the things I really love is PVM and PvP,
Yep.
which requires you to, focus up mostly. There's some exceptions, of course, like when you're doing chambers, you kind of get into the rhythm. You can, read your Twitch chat and interact and all that kind of stuff. But I like to, when I'm playing a game, I like to play the game.
Yeah, no, for sure. There was one point when I was playing RuneScape a lot that this is back in 2015 actually when I first started playing. I remember looking up, this is big tangent, but I just remember first thing I was doing, and this is very newbie. I mean, this is me, so just to give a brief little timeline, I played RuneScape from 2004 to 2007, and then I quit entirely for 8 years. I mean, I never logged in. I didn't even think about the game. I played Guitar Hero. I played like computer
Hell yeah.
games. I played GameCube games. I played all that stuff. So, sorry, did you ask something?
No, I said hell yeah,
Oh
Guitar
yeah,
Hero.
yeah.
Good
No,
times.
I was a menace at Guitar Hero. I mean, that was the game I did. If there was anything like learning how to do the Inferno, on RuneScape, like the
Yep.
equivalent was like me grinding on practice mode through the Fire and Flames. I mean, like trying to decimate parts that were so hard, and I would just sit. I'm not even kidding. I would come back from middle school and high school. It was both. I mean, it was both schools, I guess, technically kind of like led into it. But I remember I would come back from high school. I'd get off the bus. First thing I'd do is I'd load up the Wii. I played Guitar Hero on the Wii. And I would just sit without doing any homework, without even like taking off my backpack. I was already on there sitting on the couch playing Guitar Hero. And I would sit there for 5 hours straight practicing one song. It was
Let's
probably,
go.
it must have been the most annoying thing for any other person like in the room, because it's just the constant like slow motion song
Yep.
playing, and then like the little menu options that are just like guitar strums like kunk kunk kunk, like, oh, it was
Oh, it takes me back. My my
hard.
favorite Guitar Hero was World Tour because we got the I used to play the drums growing up and a band and all that kind of stuff. My brother was a guitarist and he played a lot of Guitar Hero too. So when we got that one Christmas for the Xbox, and
I
oh
sucked at the
man,
drums. I
wow,
sucked
I
at them.
loved it. It was really enjoyable. Just
It's
to
really
bash away at those.
it was really the foot pedal that just completely threw me off. It was too hard to do both. I just didn't have the foot eye coordination for it.
I was useless at the singing part. I am tone deaf, so I really cannot sing to save my life. Trying to hit those notes was just like, what am I doing wrong?
It's just awkward singing, like actually
Yeah.
singing. It was a little awkward. But anyway, the whole reason I brought that up is because in 2015, my roommate, I was doing sales in Vegas, door-to-door sales, and my roommate got me back into old school, and he was telling me about it. I was like, okay, like that's cool and all, but RuneScape sucks. Trust me, like they got rid of Wilderness and all that stuff 8 years ago. And he's like, no, they brought back like the original game that we love. And so I started playing it, and the first thing I went to do is go kill wyverns. Like I wanted to get 72 Slayer because wyverns were it. When I looked up money making guides on YouTube, wyverns, like first 3 videos, it was like,
Hell yeah.
so I don't know how I'm trying to tie this in, but basically when you were saying like, PVMing and not really being able to watch a show, just too much interaction, I had my perfect little laptop setup. I'd lie on my bed and I'd have my laptop with my wyvern alt, and then I'd just be able to watch like any sort of YouTube or shows like that. And that was like my idea of like PVM at the time, like ranging wyverns with a rune crossbow. But
Humble beginnings.
yeah. I actually really adore those kind of grinds where You turn brain off, but you're still killing a boss, and you're just stacking stuff. It's kind of like that nice
Yeah.
progression, but chill.
Yeah, that's like one of the beauties of RuneScape, right? There's just so much to explore. You can go from doing like some chilled out grinds, bank standing. I'm woodcutting right now, just chilling, cutting some redwoods, and then you can really get into the deep end with Inferno chambers,
Yeah.
Fasanis, PvP. Yeah, there's so much in this game to do, and so many different things. Beautiful.
So let me ask you this, just because we're in the little story time mode, I guess. What is your daily routine, if you don't mind me asking, of like kind of being a content creator? And I don't know, what is like more of the average day in your life? And if it has shifted, from previous years and stuff, you can even draw some comparisons of like kind of how it's, or
Yeah, so
contrasting.
I think at times I definitely struggle with my sleep schedule. I'll like any gamer, right? I'll stay up way too late sometimes. That's like my biggest kind of enemy is having the mental fortitude to kind of go to sleep. I'm a bit of a night owl. I like being awake late. I like my time off stream as a creator to just chill, vibe, watch shows or chat to people, play games, that kind of stuff. So sometimes I'll be in a schedule which is probably not the best for my stream. But on average, when I am in a good schedule, which was recently for about 2-3 months, and then I got COVID last month, so I was a little bit unwell, so it's kind of slipped recently. But on average, I'd go to bed, wake up around. Usually, I'd aim for like 8 to 10 in the morning, which is a bit of a big window. Go downstairs, have a coffee with my parents. So I live with my parents still at the moment for a few more months. Then eat breakfast, sometimes the classic baked beans on toast. Recently, it's been muesli with blueberries, and I've recently started taking athletic greens, which I think Foe is currently sponsored by, which is like an all-in-one kind of green shake because I'm trying to get my health just a bit more kind of on top of it all since, being a RuneScaper all the time and a streamer indoors, sitting on my PC. My diet's not the best sometimes, so I'm trying to take more control over that. But yeah, have a coffee, have breakfast, have that shake in the morning, make a sandwich usually to take on stream. Start my stream. Yeah, dude, my schedule's been all over the place in recent months, but anywhere from, I guess, 10 till 2 p.m., depending which stream schedule I'm in, sometimes a bit later. Stream for minimum 6, usually 8 to 10 hours. End my stream. Go downstairs, make dinner, speak to my parents for a little bit again, and then probably just get back on my PC, play more video games, chat to friends, watch shows, and then do it all over again. To be honest, I live in the middle of nowhere, so for the most part, socializing, especially over COVID, the past 2 years, I've had the occasional thing that I've been doing. A few weeks ago, I went on holiday, which is where I caught COVID, unfortunately. First time going abroad in so many years and going on holiday properly, and I goddamn catch the thing, which is very unlucky.
Yeah.
I went to Spain recently to a festival. Spent a lot of my 20s kind of going to festivals and traveling. I love going to different countries. Seeing friends maybe before COVID, maybe like once a month or something, trying to have something going to do. Apart from that, very much a homeboy. Like to stay inside, like to play games, like I said. Used to be really into fitness a long time ago, many years back, going to the gym, but nowadays some evenings might go for a little walk when it's dark and when it's nice and peaceful, especially now in the hot weather we've been having in England when it gets a bit darker. But yeah, for the most part, it's just eat, sleep, escape, repeat, as cringe as that sounds.
The t-shirt.
I absolutely love streaming, honestly.
Yeah.
It is a blessing, and I enjoy RuneScape a lot, so I have a couple off-stream games that I go through cycles of playing sometimes. Recently, it's been Risk of Rain 2, which is like a roguelike that I'm really enjoying. That maybe after streaming 8 hours plus of RuneScape, I don't want to jump back on RuneScape necessarily. Other thing is obviously like with an Ironman especially, I don't want to kind of do PVM that much sometimes and maybe get an off-stream drop because that would suck. So gotta keep that back in my mind. If I am playing RuneScape off stream, it's kind of AFKing things, doing farm runs, birdhouse runs, making potions, that kind of stuff, or maybe just PKing for fun. I do still, like I said, PK most evenings for a couple of hours in the PvP world, but I go through, like anyone, motivation spurts where I might want to exclusively just play on stream, and other times I want to play a lot off stream as well, so
Yeah.
it comes and goes in troves. But yeah, for the most part, just nothing that exciting, to be honest, outside of RuneScape recently, at least. But I think everyone's been kind of in the same boat with
Yeah.
COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's my life's not exciting whatsoever. But I also want to talk kind of about, and mainly because like every content creator goes through it, the highs and lows of content creation, and the fact that believe it or not, for those that don't content create, it is not just a steady growth. There's a lot of waves and bumps and stuff, either financially or just viewership in general, or motivation to stream and things like that. So you having done it for a decade, I'd love to hear your advice and maybe some parts that maybe you've struggled with and things like that maybe some other content creators could maybe relate to.
Yeah, so I think personally for me, I'll be honest, I still struggle, and I go through waves and motivations, and in general, some bad dips, and I think especially in recent years of COVID, I've definitely hit some of those quite a lot. I occasionally I'll take like a month off almost because of either my health. Like last year during Deadman mode, I really pushed myself to the absolute limit, which is why I'm like kind of trying to be a bit more self-conscious when it comes to health and trying to go outside for little walks. I'm not doing that much exercise, just getting outdoors a bit more and taking these green shakes and checking my diet a bit more and eating a bit healthier, like having muesli and lots of fruit in the mornings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So last year, Deadman mode time rolled around, and I've been playing DMM since the original release, right? And even though I don't ever get to actually play in the demo mode finals, the game mode itself is so fun. Even though I was casting, I still played every day, even the tournaments as well themselves. And I put in, like 40-hour straight shifts multiple times in the week, or stay up till ridiculous o'clock, sleep like a couple of hours, and then get back on it again. And I tried to do that last DMM. And I think because of the COVID whole, staying inside all the time, it just ruined me. And I think I had so much fun, right, for a few days. But I stayed awake for like 40 hours. And now that I'm 29, my body just could not handle it, and ended up actually fainting whilst going for a piss. I had finished my stream. It was really scary. I'd finished my stream, went upstairs, took my parents, came upstairs, and I was having a piss and just blacked out, woke up on the floor, like head went straight through like this towel rack, like a wooden structure, which I'm very lucky there. And I'm very lucky how I went through it, because it could just fucking pierce my neck or something.
Yeah.
Woke up on the floor, like with my pants around my ankles kind of thing, like what the hell just happened? Was so scared. Ended up like telling my parents about it because they heard a loud thump. Next day, kind of said to my community and on Twitter, like, I've got to take a quick break. I fainted last night. I'm kind of scared. Went to hospital about it. Ended up saying that it's like quite actually a common thing in men, especially if you have lack of sleep and like overexhaust yourself. If you go to take a piss, like all of the oxygen kind of like goes from your brain, not to your dick, but like just like the release in your bloodstream or something like that. It cuts off the oxygen somewhere, and so like it's not that uncommon for that to happen. And so I just blacked out. It wasn't like a real serious medical issue, fortunately for me, and no lasting effects. But that
Scary,
happened. So to take like that was like, yeah, it was very scary, and I was just like really worried about it. And so I've been a bit more self-conscious since then. But in terms of like how things affect mental health wise and that, yeah, definitely taking some breaks, sometimes more often than not, sometimes longer than I've wanted to, where either feeling burnt out of the game, or I guess more so content creating, right? Like when you don't do much else, like balance is everything in life, right? When you're not doing much else, not seeing friends, not really operating much as a human, things get a bit overwhelming and you kind of get exhausted. So it does happen sometimes, and it's something that I still struggle with for sure. Something that I try to keep on top of. I'd like to say that in the last few months in particular, I've done much better at it, from sorting out my sleep schedule, waking up early, and kind of try and focus on kind of the day in day out, and also get some fresh air and have some things to look forward to. Like I'm going to TwitchCon next week, which I can't wait for. See some friends again, some old friends I haven't seen in a very long time. Or like a few weeks ago, went to Spain, which was awesome, even though I got COVID on the way back. Had a really fantastic time seeing live music again, being with my mates, letting my hair down, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ways to avoid it. It's different for everyone. It's one of those like, balance is key, right? You need time off. Sometimes I want to tell myself I want to stream, 6-7 days a week. I want to, put in 200 plus hours a month, or I'm not gonna, be able to do this for a living or get to where I want to be and all that kind of stuff. And the main reason I've been able to be here still today and get where I am is partly it's, hard work and consistency and being around for a long time. Another part is just, like being in the right place, right time kind of thing. And I suppose living at home, of course, through my 20s has really helped me save money to the point where I'm able to hopefully get my first home due to the grace of my parents being as supportive as they have been, not trying to like kick me out,
Awesome.
and be a bit more, kind of lenient with me about things. But yeah, I think it's definitely a difficult one. Like what we do is we're so lucky to do it. I get to play games for a living, all that kind of stuff, and we are human though. Like sometimes if you don't have that balance, you definitely can fall down, and it's just getting back on that horse, right? Like if you take a bit of time off stream, I'm sure you're the same. Even if it's like a week off or something, you wonder, damn, I gotta hit this go live button. Are people gonna be here? Are people gonna have forgotten about me, or some people aren't gonna want to tune in again, or what's gonna happen? And obviously, as being self-employed as a streamer, if you don't go live, you don't stream, you're not gonna get really much income or anything like that. People are gonna unsubscribe, primes are gonna go, gift subs are gonna go, bits, etc. So it is something that plays in your mind. I'm really lucky to be in the position I am in, and I have to like sometimes pinch myself. Like we are living like a bit of a dream. So it's it's one of those things you just got to pinch yourself and be like, wake up. You're getting to do this, and I want to be doing it for many years to come. I don't want to do anything else, for a while. So fingers crossed, things keep going the way they have been going. But
I love
it's
the
a difficult
passion.
one.
I love
It's sure a difficult one sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I just love that you still have that fire for it. Even though there's times where you might not be as motivated, it's still cool to think after 10 years, this is what you want to do, and you still can look at it and say, this is really a dream, even though it's so normal now.
Yeah. Thank
there,
you.
There's a couple people that say when it registers. So you know what? We'll just take a big chunk. First of all, I think when I think of RuneScape commentators, and that's not often. I don't think of RuneScape commentators often, but if somebody were to say RuneScape commentators, I would think EVscape and PureSpam. That's who I think of. I think of your two faces,
thank you.
and it's really cool. And I want to just kind of know about the experience, what kind of led into you being a commentator for these big events, and what the whole experience is like, especially when shit almost inevitably goes wrong every time and you're on mic and you have to address at least something. So
I started casting for Jagex back in, I want to say 2014 or 15. I got invited alongside Boaty and Skill Specs, I think it was, and we all casted together. Back then I think they rented out like the old studio up in Norwich or Norfolk, back where Jeremy Kyle was filmed, if you know what Jeremy Kyle is.
no.
It's like kind of people have family problems and they go on there to air their discussions on TV, and then like have like the lie detector test or the birth test. Like, are you the father? That kind of stuff. So it was a surreal experience being there to cast a demo tournament. We basically were in this massive studio, like a big room with a stage and everything, and we were just sat down on two desks with two monitors, all huddled around. There's pictures somewhere, so old, and it's crazy to think that's what it started out as, just a couple of nerds. Who were doing it as like not as a career. I guess Adam was full time then. Jay and I were just doing it for fun as hobbies, and we were just huddled around these PCs talking into these really crappy microphones. And then it kind of escalated. That did really well. Jagex saw the potential. It then kind of kept blowing up, and eventually then went to TwitchCon and went to LA as well to do one at an ESL studio, and then they were doing them in Leicester and in London, and yeah, it's wild to think. I've had so many, like I said earlier, so many amazing experiences and really fantastic memories made from like doing that stuff. And it's also been really good, I guess, as a content creator to kind of get my name out there and to be known as the demo mode guy or as the caster guy. I think I've casted every single DMM since 2015, a year on year. Sometimes every like 3 months, and I've casted other stuff too, like other competitive tournaments they've put on.
That's so cool.
when things go wrong, like again, it's like the whole thing about feeling very lucky to be there, right? Like I get paid for the first year. I actually wasn't paid. I just did it for free for fun because paid in exposure and just love the game and all that kind of stuff. Love PvP.
Paid in exposure. What
They
is
didn't,
Jagex
no.
thinking? They gotta pay
I
you.
know, right?
But it's
I
still.
know, right?
I mean, still though, you gotta think like, yeah. I mean,
It's actually quite funny because like the first year I think I was casting it for free and then just doing it for fun. I was just happy to be doing it, right? And to be getting my face
I
out
know.
there still.
You almost like don't want to ask because then they'll be like, oh, we'll just get somebody else. They'll do it for free.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus.
Then actually what I ended up having when I did get paid, it was Skidler. They invited Skidler to cast with me.
Yeah.
And Elliot was like, wait, I'm not getting paid. He's like, I want to get paid. I was like, bless up, Elliot. So Elliot's the one that actually pushed for us to get paid.
Shout out.
And
Elliot.
then shout Elliot. And then they had a meeting, and I think some of the guys that were working for them were like said to Matt K, oh, how does this number sound? And he was like, yeah, that sounds good. And then from then on, I had a contract where, like on a case-to-case scenario, they'd invite me out and all that kind of stuff and get to do it. But yeah, ultimately, because I was paid for it and it was a fun experience. I was representing Jagex, had to be professional and all that kind of stuff, and just love doing it, right? So even if shit was hitting the fan and things were going wrong, like I'm a streamer, right? I want to entertain. I want to do all this kind of stuff, and I have fun doing it. I love watching the game. I just want the events to go well, so they keep happening and all that kind of stuff. So even when things are going bad, yeah, it's stressful for me, but I would always think like, at the end of the day, I'm happy to be here and to do this stuff. It's out of my control. You can't really, change what's happening, and there must be so many people behind the scenes at Jagex, like people that I'm friends with, JMods that I'm friends with, that are probably like really panicking and really stressed out.
Yeah.
And all my job is just to talk like I normally do on stream and just to make conversation and to chat away and have fun. So like it wasn't ever that bad for me personally. I didn't really get that like annoyed or upset about it. And then obviously as well, you got the participants, many of which again are like my friends or people in my clan that are competing and having fun, and a whole Twitch chat that are all out there watching and just annoyed that the tournament's not going on. So kind of out of my control. And like I said, like the when it registers meme, that wasn't wasn't intentional.
The funniest thing, just the funniest 3 words of all time. Just
oh my god, it wasn't like I wanted to kind of like flame Jagex or like be like what the hell. I was just casting and it just came out naturally. Like I was just talking about what was going on. It's like, and he's about to use a special attack. Mountain Mage is going to kill him when it registers or whatever it was. And obviously because Oda's the one that popularized it, I believe, because he was streaming his perspective, and then he was reacting to us saying it, and he was just getting so angry, understandably so, of course, because he wanted to win the $20,000 grand prize, and he felt like he had the chance to win, and he'd be sweating for a week straight. Getting like an LE, transferring a load of GP to get it, getting like max best in slot gear and stats. So he was, understandably pissed off. But then that clip went viral. XQC responded to it. There's another moment actually, which went quite viral, which was myself and Boaty were casting at an Insomnia Gaming Festival event, which is like a little game convention up in Birmingham, I think it was, many years ago.
Yeah.
Back in like 2015, 16. And we had headphones on, but they weren't like the one, the clip I'm talking about. They weren't the proper headphones.
Yeah.
And because we're gamers, right, went to take off our headphones, and like Adam goes to take his off, and they're not there because they're like in-ear things. And then I go to the exact same thing, and I'm just like so confused, like looking for my headphones. So the next morning, actually, after that event, we like did that casting event, had a great time, went like drinking afterwards and such, and had a nice meal and everything. Woke up the next morning rather hungover, and I get a message from my brother, and he's like, Ian, you're on the front page of Reddit. And I'm like, what? And so I open up my phone, and there it is, like literally front page of Reddit, top post of the day. Adam and I taking off our headphones, and it was like my 5 minutes. Everyone gets to like 5 minutes of fame, right? And that was like it for me. And it was
that's awesome.
That was a very bizarre experience, but
that really,
I've only got.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say that really is one of like the all-time greatest clips. Just both of you, just. It's like NPCs, basically. I mean, you're just like so used to taking this thing off, and you both do it. It's just awesome.
Yeah, very nerdy. And there's one more DMM thing that happened. I was casting with Elliot once, and actually it's 2 parts. Elliot is a very funny guy, and he's got no filter. I've got 2 memorable experiences with him, which just made me feel so shit, but are really funny to look back on. One was we were casting at a Rune Fest, I think it was, like hosting. And we were doing a tournament, and we were talking about something, and I said something like, "Oh, you're one of my best mates, Elliot," and he was like, all right then. Anyway, moving on, the whole crowd just laughed at me. And then there was another one where I was interviewing Nightinator. I don't know if you've seen this clip. I'll send it to you later. I was interviewing Nightinator with Elliot at a tournament where she was on stage. It was like a Wilderness Wars one. It wasn't like a DMM or anything. We had 4 creators that had like their Twitch chats, like 50 to 100 people sign up with them. And there were like bosses that would randomly spawn. It was a really cool concept. They'd be in the wilderness with all their teammates. They'd go to kill the bosses. If they kill the bosses, they all get like upgrades, and they'd all fight each other, and the last clan standing basically won. And I was talking to 99 about it, like, kind of interviewing her on stage about it. And then she goes to put her headphones back on again, and I didn't realize, and I kept talking, like asking her a question, and she's just back in the game. She's just back in the game, and I'm like, oh, all right then. Well, good luck, Nightinator. And then Elliot just goes into the microphone, denied. And that clip is on Twitch, and just, oh man, I get roasted for that every now and then from my Twitch chat. But yeah, some great memories of the casting. Wait, one more that I'll talk about was with Skill Specs at a TwitchCon. And we went out to TwitchCon to cast this DMM tournament. We were on stage, and on that stage was like, it was right in front of the merch line. So me and him on this massive podium, sitting down with this massive screen behind us of DMM going on. It was being broadcast live, but also live at the venue. There was a little crowd in front of us, and then just behind the crowd, there's just massive loop of people, all waiting to get merch from TwitchCon, and they had nothing to do except either look at their phones or look up at us, which was just being broadcast, and we were like, talking into the microphone. And something went like really wrong. I think it was the one where Wooks was tick-eating in the fog. And so we were just there trying to like explain what was going on, and there were like hundreds of people just being like, "What the hell is happening right now?" That was an interesting experience. But I've got nothing but good memories of DMM, to be honest. Even when everything goes wrong, or there's like drama happening or DDoSing happening, it's kind of out of our control, and it's always I got paid for it, and I got to be there with my friends and with all the JMods that I'm good friends with as well, and get to be a part of something bigger than myself. It's something I'm always going to look back on with fond memories, to be honest. And hopefully, even though I don't think DMM Finale might come back in the same way it has done, I do pray that we have all stars or invitational events. And given my track record, I do really hope they obviously invite me back. Partly, I'd love to get paid again. It's a great thing to get paid for doing something that you love, but on top of that, it's just cool to be a part of. So yeah, fingers crossed for the future, and great for the community too.
Yeah, I also think it's cool that because you have been doing them since 2015, it's really, I don't know. I mean, you're going back to like the paid for exposure thing. Besides the whole like, that you should have been paid. You should have been paid for the first few times. Yeah. But I mean, it's really cool because like I just see you now, and I'm like, oh, like I mean, inevitably you're going to be the next, commentator of something. Now that's not a guarantee or anything, but me just as part of the community, and I'm sure many others just think, oh, like you are one of the commentators, for these events, and I just think that's a great position to have because you are great at it. So it feels very natural.
Cheers.
Speaking of Skidler, Elliot asks 2 questions.
Here it is.
Where the fuck has your hairline gone, and why is everything on your barbecue burnt? And then West Ham responds, I hope he knocks you out next RuneFest on God.
Now, if I could knock Elliot out, I would for that comment, but we all know that Elliot is much stronger, thicker, and more hench than I am, so I don't think that's going to happen. Plus, I couldn't hurt a fly. But, so to answer the first question, yes, I have a massive forehead. I always have done, which surprises me why Elliot asked this question, because again, many memories. Again, another memory of with Elliot being at the Deadman Mansions, getting to host one of the mansions with him and cast the finals. And that was such a wild experience. We had like this mansion. I need to talk about this very quickly. Yeah. We had this mansion booked out, and Elliot and I were like looking after basically 5 content creators because we just put ourselves up for it and thought it'd be fun. And we were also streaming from the place too. And I think a week beforehand, the mansion had been like broken into. So there were like these what are they called, NOS pellets, or whatever they call the things where people like put them into these machines, and like I don't know, basically all this like drug paraphernalia left around this place. Like there was like marijuana buds on like the radiators and like leaks in the ceiling. Jesus. And it was It was a strange experience, but everyone had like bedrooms with like ensuite bathrooms, and Elliot and I were just sleeping on this floor with this mattress, just cuddled up next to each other for like a week straight.
Oh wait.
But even
Oh my
yeah, for a week straight. But even back then, I still had a massive forehead. Unfortunately, genetics do be how it do be. I'd like to say that it's my big brain that's in here, but we all know that's not true. So, yeah, unfortunately, I do have a massive forehead, and I'm reminded of it daily by my Twitch chat with the forehead command and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it is what it is. Can't change it, but hey, we embrace it. As for my barbecues, again, a bit of a meme. A while ago, I think it was a year or two ago now, I put a tweet out, which was me. It's basically, we have these like disposable barbecues, which is like a tray with a bit of charcoal in it, and they look really sad. It's not a proper barbecue. It's not how I normally do barbecues. But one night, it was just a nice evening. I didn't feel like doing a proper barbie. I just wanted to grill some sausages, kind of thing, outside and get some sunshine. So I have this picture on Twitter floating around of just this chair in front of a couple bricks on the floor with this little barbecue on top of it. It just looks really sad and depressing now that I look back on it. And I kind of got memed to shit about it. But it's like, as any creator, right? If you get like flame for something or you get meme for something, like you gotta just take it in your stride. And at the end of the day, content's content, right? So you just kind of embrace it and grow with it. So yeah, I started posting barbecue pictures occasionally on Twitter and getting sometimes flame for them. And one of them was I don't think they were burnt, but I don't know. Whenever I have a barbecue, I like a bit of charcoal on my barbie. Yeah. I like a little bit of that stuff on the outside of the sausages. But
absolutely.
But yeah, Elliot's a bit of a snob when it comes to food. One Runefest, I remember. Well, to be fair, quite rightly so. He's got balls. Like if you're gonna go to a restaurant, when I've been to restaurants or gone out for food with Elliot, if something's not good or like to a high standard, not only will he like make it known to people, he will complain and like ask for either a refund or like send the food back and ask for it to be re-prepared again if it's not to like the standard that he's ordered it. Which understandably, if you're ordering food and such, like that's what you got to do. Just a lot of us, I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit timid and I don't want to cause problems or anything like that.
Are very timid, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't really care. I'm not that fussy of an eater anyway. So
it's great to have a friend like that will you go with them and you're like, all right, we're getting double meals, boys.
Exactly, yeah. Or like I said, I would never have been, put on the payroll if it wasn't for Elliot. Yeah. Like quite rightfully, kind of sticking his, asking for the payment in the first place. So yeah, big ups to El, to be honest. And also stop being a cheeky cunt. But yeah, I do love you, man.
Yeah, I it actually brought up something just kind of like what you're worth as a content creator, and I know it. I'm not gonna lie, the exposure is great and all, but yeah, you are worth something. But then again, probably at the time, you're probably exactly like me. If Jagex invited me out to go commentate and there was no pay questions there, I'd be like, you know what? I really don't want to like maybe have this go a different way where they get somebody else out. So I would probably be in the same place kind of, but now I guess with at least when it comes to sponsorships and things like that, like I feel like I do have a pretty firm grasp of somewhat what I'm worth. And so now when things are brought up, and I kind of say this more as like advice to I guess like smaller creators and people that are like up and coming, it's like you just pretty much, if you're not comfortable with a certain like situation or like in regards to finances when it comes to sponsorships or like just opportunities you're given, like it's way better to just be very upfront about it, and then there's no questions, and then there's no awkwardness and things like that. Like I was offered one in particular, and I just basically stated, and it was fair. I'm not like asking for extreme things. Like I pretty much know what I'm worth, but this company was lowballing, and so I just straight up said, like, I don't even want to be in this conversation because like I can clearly tell you guys are going to be shorting me money and stuff. So I'm just going to straight up say what I want. And then they were like, oh no, we can't do it. And then I was like, okay, great. End of conversation. That went so much nicer. We were still polite about it. I mean, I was trying to be as polite as possible, but it's like, sometimes it's better to just lay everything out right up front.
Absolutely, yeah, you got to know your worth. Like, I guess it comes down to as well. You mentioned earlier, you asking me how different Twitch has changed, and the whole like kind of content creation scene has changed since I started doing it. And like I said, even back then when I first started casting, it was kind of still a hobby, and I wasn't really making much money from it. If any money, I was just doing it for fun. or is that whole scene's kind of changed in the last 10 years? Now a lot. And even now, like sometimes I don't really know my worth. Like a month or two ago, I was sponsored for like a month straight, and what I was paid, I thought was like quite reasonable because of payments that I've had in the past from other sponsorships. So I was like, oh, this seems fine. And then I really didn't know like 100% I was getting other sponsorship offers. So I ended up actually, you mentioned Mason. I actually ended up signing up to Crusader Gaming. God bless them. And they got me a sponsorship recently, which what I was getting paid for the month of advertising this company, I basically have to add. I've got another sponsorship coming up from a company that I really like as well, a product that I really like, for one day, which was basically paying me the same as 1 month. So
Wow.
like, it's yeah, there are a lot. Obviously, business is business, right? And
Yep.
people are going to try and take advantage of you. One thing for new creators, I'd say, is stay away from affiliate stuff.
Yep.
It's just not worth at all, and they are getting so much more out of you than you are out of them. Unless you're like, it's a product that you really, really love, and you want to like kind of get a good reputation
Yeah.
with them, and kind of have like a bit of a back and forth, and then with the whole goal of one day changing that affiliate into something more. But yeah, it's a difficult market to navigate for sure. And I'm really glad that I ended up signing with Crusader recently because it's something that like I said about earlier, like not wanting to kind of bring up that my food isn't cooked perfectly, or
Yeah.
wanting to complain or ask for money or anything like that. It's something that I do not like negotiating. I don't like talking about
Yep.
money really either.
It's
It's not something
bad.
that's like at the forefront of my mind. So,
Yeah.
but you have to know your own worth, and that's just something that's going to come with speaking to other creators about stuff, as well as kind of maybe getting some representation or some advice from other people. Don't be afraid to like talk to people about it and all that kind of thing, because it should be talked about more. Really, it's like having salaries known and all that kind of stuff is important for normal business, right? So people can be competitive and people aren't being, underrepresented and all that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
in the content creation scene, it definitely you should talk to your friends about all that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. You know what? We'll bring this up briefly because there were a few, people that love to grab the notable, maybe regrets of creators and stuff, or,
Here we go.
but people, I'll just read this one by SLB Campeo. He asks, is crafting skill that hard since you needed a second hand to level up for you? So I guess, and let me also just preface this again. I know I love prefacing things, but there is when you put yourself in the public eye, there are people that watch you, and they will never, ever, for whatever reason, let any mistake, or even if it's not a mistake, something they didn't like, they will never let it down till the end of time. And I've seen it with many creators that I've had on where they make, a mistake, they say something wrong, or they messed up in some way, and it just haunts them for years. And it doesn't have to haunt them particularly, but from an outside's perspective, you can clearly tell people get riled up by things like that for years and years after. So if you'd like to briefly explain this.
Yeah, so I think
Thoughts?
that's definitely out of all the things that I've done in 10 plus years of content creation, that's probably my biggest slip up where I look back on it like it's done me the most damage, I think, as a creator, to the point where kind of people still bring it up now. And I mentioned it briefly a minute ago about kind of memeing about things and such, and kind of like owning, things that aren't necessarily like make fun of yourself kind of thing. Content is content. But that particular situation is something that's kind of gone way out of control, spiraled to the point where it's definitely negatively affected me mentally, and is a bit of a shitty one. But like you mentioned, creators are humans too. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. Briefly about that specific situation. So first of all, I want to preface this by saying my pure Iron Man, I have done everything myself. I did all the crafting on stream, just saying. All my PVM achievements, all that kind of stuff, is all done by myself. I streamed it since 2016. My hardcore Iron Man, basically 2 years ago, I think it was 3 years ago now, 2 years maybe, I made a hardcore Iron Man to try and explore the game as a main account, and the hardcore hype was kind of like in its big time. Everyone was making hardcores and giving it a go, and I wanted to give it a go as well. I was getting a bit burnt on my pure Iron Man, so I thought, all right, let's make a hardcore Iron Man. But I'd already done all the grinds on my hardcore, and as a streamer, like at the forefront of your mind is I want to make content, I want to like do things that are fun, that people want to watch, all that kind of stuff. So I was feeling a bit burnt out. I had to, do all the grinds I'd already done before. And one of my friends, Pez, at the time, one of my mods, he was like, well, I'm burnt at the game too, but I wouldn't mind playing some hardcore for a little bit. So I gave him access to my account. I said, if you want to jump on, you want to do something, hey, feel free. Just don't do any dangerous content. Don't do any quests, stuff like that. I want to keep that for myself. But if you want to do a bit of skilling grinds, anything that's like quite time consuming, feel free to do it. To which he did. And I made the mistake of publicly tweeting out, of my own accord, not being like caught. I was very public about the fact that my friend would like play occasionally. Account sharing for many years was, it's against the rules, but it's not one of those rules that was enforced unless you're being competitive about it, going for high score rank, all that kind of stuff. So I let him on the account. One day I was like complaining on stream, like, oh guys, I might not be live tomorrow. I got to do a bunch of crafting, or I don't want to stream it because it's boring and I can't be arsed. I want to go sandstone mine for a while, etc., etc. Logged in the next day. He'd set up late and he'd, finished off my grind for me, the stuff that I had to do, my sandstone, etc., and like burnt my seaweed and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, holy shit, this is so nice of him. Let me put out a thank you tweet because I'm very appreciative, and everyone knows that I do this anyway, or so I thought. I thought everyone knew because I was public about it on my own stream, but obviously not everyone watches my streams because people follow my Twitter, and Twitter's a public place, etc., etc. So I tweeted out saying thank you, to which it just kind of got way out of hand. I think what it came down to was people's frustration at Jagex not enforcing the rules, and the mentality that like account sharing shouldn't be like allowed in any way, shape, or form. So it started off as like a bunch of HLC and individuals that don't like that kind of play style and think it should be like not it should be enforced better. Just basically making it really public, being like blah blah, can't believe you shared accounts, all this kind of stuff. Wow, creators, because obviously as a creator you're kind of held to a higher standard, and especially because I get contracted to cast work for Jagex as well, assume that it's got to be set the example and such. Yeah. So what was meant as me being like totally honest and coming forward and giving a thank you just to one of my mates that like I didn't pay for it, by the way. I didn't like pay for services, which was against the rules, wasn't anything like that. He was just a good mate trying to do me a favor and trying to help me out. Just spiraled way out of control to the point then there were like Reddit threads made about it, like, oh my god, this content creator is so bad, cancel him. And then like I said at the time, I said something along the lines of like, hey, I totally don't mind you guys using me as an example of like, this shouldn't be okay, and like, making the conversation of Jagex being like, we should start enforcing the rules more. But it comes down to like hate the game, not the player as well. Like these rules haven't been enforced for a very long time. They don't care about it and such. It's not like I'm going for ranks. I wasn't paying for service or anything like that. And things just kind of like blew out of proportion to the point where there was misinformation being spread about me, like on Twitter, on Reddit, just completely crazy things like, oh, this person's a horrible guy, he does all these other things, or not going to give examples, but just like things that was completely outlandish, just fully weren't true. And the problem is that like once you've got that mob mentality of like, this person's bad, we don't like this thing, things become believable for a lot of people that are outside looking in. And even though I've been around for a long time, I'm a creator that's been around since 2012. I've cast all the DMM tournaments. Like in the grand scheme of things, I'm not a bit like, I'm not like a boaty. I'm not like, that big of a creator. Not everyone knows me and all that kind of stuff. They know of me, but they don't really know me. They've not watched my streams before or know me as a person. So, people just believe things at face value. They get a few uptokes or whatever because people love upvoting things and love jumping on hate bandwagons. It just spiraled to the point where it was just like, man, I feel like the community fucking hates me now for one little mistake that I made. Yep. Not to mention that, like, I'm not going to name names, but I know so many creators that have paid for people to do their accounts for them or help them out in whatever shape or form.
Every single PKing stream that use every single one, basically.
Yeah, and ironman too, and other creators that have like had help from people, but like at the end of the day, it wasn't meant as like this should be okay. It wasn't like me trying to make a statement. It was just me trying to give a thank you and trying to be honest. But I'm the one that gets shot down and like hated by everyone, and now I'm like remembered by a lot of people in their mind as being the guy that bought services or the guy that shares accounts because he's really bad at the game or doesn't want to do his own grinds. Which, like I said, isn't true. Like my pure Ironman's pretty much 2K total level with 90 plus and everything, with a bunch of endgame achievements, Infernal Cape, Tebow, Bofa, Dragon Warhammer, like all that stuff I've done myself, spent a long time doing it, which I'm very proud of, but unfortunately overshadowed in some people's minds about the fact that I had a content creation account that I was kind of like just trying to put out some good content, have some fun with, that I got a bit of help on because one of my mates wanted to be kind and make things a bit quicker. But like, regardless of how people feel about that rule and about like, account sharing not being, meant to be done or anything like that, it was a horrible experience for me personally. Like waking up to just scrolling through Reddit and having just loads and loads of hate pointed at me, and then at the same time on Twitter too, just loads of people like retweeting. And even now, like it's a very easy ratio. If you want to get a ratio on me on Twitter, go for it. Just say, don't you like anything that I say, any opinion that I've got about anything, it's like, why should we care about your opinion? Like, you shared accounts. Or if I say something like this should be against the rules, or I'm so glad, for example, recently the client bans, like I'm so glad this has finally happened. It's played PvP since 2017. Like clienting and PvP and risk fighting, which is something that I'm very passionate about, has been like completely destroyed by people using cheats and AHK and stuff. And I'd be like, I said something like that on Twitter, like, oh, thank God this is done. And then I have people replying being like, you've got no room to say anything about cheating, you account sharer. And it's like, bro, like apples and oranges, like it's a bit different and all that kind of thing. So
Now
it definitely does suck. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm definitely behind the most of it now. It has a thing in the back of my mind like, oh shit, I shouldn't admit this because of trolls and all that. But it definitely does suck, and it's not my best moment for sure in 10 years of content creation.
No, it 100% sucks. And yeah, I mean, as soon as one little slip up that arguably is not a big deal at all ends up just haunting a content creator, because like there's nothing, like people want to look for the imperfections and then just rail on them. I've been through my own bullshit of that where, and then the worst part that you had kind of mentioned are just lies. I mean, like, where they'll mix in that and then they'll start saying other just absolute lies on Reddit of things that you do, and there's no defending yourself. So at that point you're just like, okay, well, this sucks, because regardless of what I try to do, if I try to just for my entire day go through every fucking thread that of me being mentioned and try to inform people that, okay, that part's not true, and hey, like I apologize, like I'm not going to do it anymore or anything like that, it doesn't matter, because I mean, it's just like there's too much there.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with so many creators as well, where it's one little slip up, just one little thing, and sometimes not even creators, just people on Twitter, they'll just do one thing and now that is what they're known for forever, and it's really fucking sad. And I have a lot of empathy for it, mainly because I've gone through it myself. And for those that have never gone through anything like that, which is the vast majority of people that have just not been publicly shamed for something, it sucks. It sucks ass. It really is a downer on your mood and mental health completely, depending on how big of an impact it is, especially as with the content creator where that is your living. I mean, now you're being publicly humiliated on, things where you can't even defend yourself. It's fucking awful. So, it's impossible to basically explain to anybody that hasn't gone through it, but it really does suck. And try to see a little bit of empathy, or try to have a little bit of empathy for these, believe it or not, content creators, like you said, are not perfect people. It's pretty crazy to think that we're not perfect.
Yeah, we all make mistakes, and that doesn't necessarily mean that like we shouldn't be kind of told that we're wrong. We are wrong sometimes, all that kind of stuff. But equally, like people grow, and people understand, and it's just one of those like. I've been on the internet for a long, long, long time, and I've been creating, like I said, for so many years now that it's like I understand not everyone's going to like me, right? You don't have to like me and all that kind of stuff, but when you have, just are bombarded with negativity, it's very, and your life is kind of like your career is online and all that kind of stuff. It's very hard to avoid. So, like recently, for example, one of my friends has a maxed hardcore Ironman. He's not done any PVM on. One of my close friends. One of my mods that I'm seeing next week, actually going to TwitchCon to go catch up with him as well. And he's like, Ian, I want you to stream this account, go do, all the endgame PVM as a hardcore. And it's like, dude, you are crazy if you think I'm going to touch that account. If I log on that account even once on stream, that's all going to come back. And like, I don't, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. So
I hate to bring up other examples of this stuff. I'll only bring up one just because I know he's totally good and he's moved past it, and he even memes on it. But Coxie,
that's what I was thinking. Yeah, bless him.
When his script went off, I mean, again, it's like, he messed up. I mean, it's clearly it's clearly cheating, and it's a video game. At the end of the day, it's RuneScape. He didn't want to manually click 28 herbs over and over and over and over, so he decided to cheat and do it. And it's like, okay, that's the end of it. Boom. He got his little, public shaming and all that. And, but I don't know. I just like see things like that, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. It's not as deep as
I think
people make
I
it.
think it comes down to like it's like I think people like to kind of jump on that mob mentality of
Oh, they love it. Yeah.
to like feel better. Maybe sometimes I don't know. When I think about myself, when I've been negative online, when I've been toxic in PvP and all that kind of stuff, I look back and I'm like, wow, that was so out of character for me. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I saying these things? Why am I acting this way? And usually it comes down to like I'm not in a good place myself in my
Yeah.
mind. Like I'm acting this way or getting emotional or getting upset about these things because I'm not happy myself. And I think I'm not a psychologist. I'm not claiming to be, but I think a lot of it comes down to that as well. People just kind of are distracting from their own problems. People got to like just think about themselves a bit more, I think, sometimes, and not get so stuck into how other people are doing things. Obviously, there's, some things are right, some things are wrong. Obviously, people have opinions on things. People are passionate. I get that. And like, fair enough, voice your opinion. But when people bring it up and constantly like remind people about it years later, it's just not nice. It's just horrible. Like poor Coxie, especially.
Yeah.
He can't get away from that. Like I've had my fair share of drama with the whole crafting thing and still get it today. But yeah, Coxie doesn't deserve any of that haze. Like he's always been a lovely guy to me at least, and
Yeah.
I really like
Absolutely.
the dude. So yeah, unfortunate for him.
I wanted to bring up just to kind of close off this little topic, but
Yeah.
basically, yeah, I used to get really emotional over like really kind of, I don't know, just kind of like being harassed over YouTube comments, like some person in the comments just cutting deep, kind of saying something that's like, okay, this actually kind of hurts. Like I know it's just internet words, and it's clearly probably a guy that's probably not in a great place himself. Simply the fact, I mean, it's almost like 100% guarantee that a person's not in a great place if they're going around YouTube comments just talking shit and stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have, I mean, you could be doing anything else right now, but you choose to do this. So, but what I've noticed is basically the times I get really upset and I dwell on those comments is when I'm not like I know it sounds really basic and kind of like preachy, but it's like when I haven't moved my body, like when I haven't exercised or anything. It's like when I haven't moved, I haven't gone outside. Those things dwell. I mean, I will just nonstop think about it. And then I realized, I mean, this year I've gotten a little bit more into fitness and just like taking daily walks and stuff. Like, dude, I don't think of those people anymore. Like, I don't think of like comments, like negative things anymore. Like my mind is clear. I don't even think about RuneScape. I don't think about money. I just, it's like a free, like, just clear my mind of everything and just take in life. And it's really, really, really been refreshing for me to just
Oh man.
be able to ignore all that and just take a moment, a big moment for myself, just getting some exercise. So that's been a great help, and I want to keep it up. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, man. I'm really glad you've got to that place, and yeah, things aren't affecting you as deeply in that because I think that's like one of my main goals this year myself as well. Like recently, I've been, like I said, focusing on my diet and also just hanging out with friends in the evenings, even if it's just through the computer screen, just
Yeah.
trying to do things. Like I went to, like I said, on holiday recently. I didn't plan to go to TwitchCon. It's next week. I didn't plan to go until like last minute. I was like, man, life's short. I want to go do things, and I always feel better for seeing friends and doing this stuff. And I definitely want to get back into fitness by the end of this year as I end up moving and all that kind of stuff for my own mental health and such. But yeah, that balance in life is whatever you're doing. Like it's key. It's good to have hobbies outside of work. Focus on your health, eat good, sleep good.
Yeah.
Speak to friends. You're not alone. All that kind of stuff. It's easier said than done sometimes when you're in a rut and things like affect you negatively.
Yeah.
But like ultimately, it's got to come from within, and I think that
Yeah.
you've got to be the one to change it. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
hard to make those first steps for sure, as I've found, and sometimes you fall out of it, and like you'll be on a high and be doing well, and then something might knock you off the thing. But you can always jump back on the horse kind of
Yep.
thing, and
Never too late.
only thing stopping you is really yourself. And it sounds corny and all that, but it is totally true. And you are great, and you are able to do those things. So yeah.
Yeah. And just being able to block people. I mean, blocking people. I mean, I'm
Yep.
not kidding. I know it sounds like funny, but it's like, dude, genuinely blocking people that
Yeah,
are
no, you're
all
right.
negative, that are all negative. It's like I used to do a thing very briefly. I've always been kind of really used to blocking people. It's really nice and just banning people. But there were times where I'd keep that around, or like, I'd maybe kind of like check in, like, okay, clearly there's an account on Twitter that's like just fucking hates me, or like a person on Twitter, and like you're kind of curious to see like what they've posted on you, just so you can like kind of like have your fake little, I don't know, revenge. I don't it's weird. It's like, you almost like are looking, you're like searching for people, like the haters, but then I'm like, you know what, it was a brief period where it's just like, I don't know, you kind of want to see it, but then it's like, dude, your life gets so much better when you just block out all that negativity. And I'm not talking about like the occasional thing where it's like a clear criticism you could work on, but I'm talking people that just hate you. Just get them out of your life. They're on the internet even, so it's like even easier than being in person. It's like, just get rid of them. And it's done.
you're in control of like. I know it's a bit of a meme of the whole like just it's the internet. Just get off your PC and walk away kind of thing. But like the blocking tool is for sure so useful. I found a lot of use in that as well. And I know what you mean about, kind of sometimes you're in a bad state, almost feel like you deserve it, or like you want to look for it, the negativity, and then you hone in on it and all that kind of stuff, and it's a horrible cycle. One thing I realized recently too, like there's a few guys that, not gonna name names, but that do like persistently kind of like chime in and try and like say things to take digs at me. And recently one of them I like DM'd. I went to like DM, his DMs open. I clicked DM to like see if we'd ever conversated or anything like that. And for years, the guy was like a fan, like was super nice to me, like talking really nicely, like saying all this stuff about how much he loves my casting and all this kind of stuff, and asking me questions about RuneScape. And then like, I never remembered it. Like it was 2017, 2016, 18. And then in the past couple of months, his replies to me, and it's just all really horrible and negative. It's like, man, I just feel sorry for people like that now. That are just like so stuck in their, negative mindset, like what changed for them, that they're spending their time to try and bring other people down on the internet in such horrible ways. Just block and just ban in Twitch chat, and like
it's over.
Yeah, you can't get too stuck on what other people think about you, especially as a creator. There's going to be people that like and dislike you, that agree and disagree with you. But ultimately, it's you got to, like anything in life, you got to focus on you and the people around you that you care about, and the people that are important to you, and the things that are important to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Easier said than done, though. I get you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's tough, and it's just, you're always improving. There's never going to be a point where you can't like get better at it. But Longbows asks, do you think there's a chance OSRS will ever have a successful esports league / tournament? And just to, again, connect or just expand this a little bit, will OSRS ever just be a successful esport in general? Like, does it have those, I don't know, characteristics in a game? Like, is it possible?
So, like I said before, in terms of the league stuff, I like the idea of the PvP arena that can bring with the whole self-automated 64-man tournaments, and I really hope Jax really pursues that. We have like some seasonal stuff that comes out of it, and with the ELO system, the first ELO system in like competitive gaming in old school, aside from obviously the game's necklace Burthorpe area, which has the ELO system, but no one's playing, Rune Link competitively, I don't think. In terms of, can the game itself, can PvP actually be purely competitive when we're playing a RNG game where, you've got an accuracy roll if you hit the opponent or not, and then if you do hit, it just rolls from, 0 to your max hit. Can that truly be competitive? It's a difficult one. Like, I think there are games out there that are RNG based and that do have an element of RNG in them. Like, ultimately, if you're fighting someone that knows what they're doing, that's very, very good, they will beat you like 99.9% of the time. So there is skill base in RuneScape and tribreading and NHing and all that kind of stuff, and PKing. But at the top levels, RNG becomes a massive deal. Like catching a freeze, getting momentum over a fight. When you hit people off prayer, are those hits off prayer big hits, or are your hits through prayer the big hits, which are then reduced because of the prayer, and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it's like guessing game and all that kind of thing. I think it can be competitive because like what is, when it comes to like competitive game that is RuneScape or DMM mode, I think the biggest tool it is for the game is as a marketing tool to kind of show off the game and people to watch and to enjoy, like esports, or like, why do people watch sports and that, and like to watch their favorite teams play and all that kind of thing. There's a lot of luck involved in all kinds of those situations, and could they change it to like reduce or remove the RNG altogether? Like maybe, but then you completely change what NHing is. So for example, if let's say you got a point, like I remember Adam and I many years ago, we had a night out and we were drinking and sat by a bar at the end of the night and we were talking about like if we wanted to see a purely competitive RS PvP fight, like what would it be? We like talked about maybe if like you hit someone off prayer, you get a point, or if you get a spec off prayer, you get like 5 points, or if you like successfully get your tank gear on, you like get a point, all that kind of stuff. But then when you start doing things like that, you kind of take away from what NHing is. Suddenly, it's not about hitting every 5 game tick cycle with like crossbow and mage and not missing any game ticks to try and keep up your DPS. But suddenly, it's about maybe stalling hits and like waiting to try and catch your opponent prayer. And even then, like it's a whole guessing game, right? It's like a game of mental chess, like where you're trying to be one step ahead of the opponent and kind of outplay them and like make it look like you're going to do a range hit, but you're faking and you're doing something else. And a lot of that comes down to like, well, it's a 1 in 3 chance to get it right. So like, how much of that is competitive? And like, long story short, I think it is. Even at the state that it is right now, I still think it's competitive. I would love to see something like that in the future, but it sounds like such a massive kind of design work, and I don't think anyone at Jagex that works for the team has that PvP expertise to design something like that at the moment, or at least a full understanding like the top NHs do in the game. Does that mean it won't ever happen? Like maybe if they brought on board some people to come help them, which they've done for like a lot of content, like Raids 3 recently, they got Atty and a bunch of other people, Dead Wilson, etc., to come in and kind of test the game out. Maybe they could lean on the PvPs in the game and like the PvP Discord they have recently to try and help design something like that. I know we have like a lot of new JMods too. Shout out to Mod Goblin, who's their most recent addition, I believe, one of our community managers now, who's like very into PvP. Used to work for Method. He used to be my boss at Method as well, and he knows a lot about RuneScape. He plays an Ironman, all that kind of stuff, but he's big on PvP and competitiveness. Maybe one day we can get something like that. I think it's probably a big thing to ask for, especially considering that, like I said, the dev restraints and how little dev time we have on PvP, and with the state that PvP is in right now. I just really hope we still get tournaments, and you know, that we still get these opportunities for the community and the people that love to watch it and that love to partake in it just keep happening, which I don't think they're going away anytime soon, even though they're going to be in the same form they've been in the past with the demo mode finals. But there's a lot of things they could do. Like I said about the whole point system, they could do something like that. But even as it is right now, like you put someone like 1013 up against even the best Brids in the game, and like 90% of the time, 1013 is going to beat them.
Yeah.
Or someone like Panic even.
Yep.
Like he's very good too, and he knows the game to a T. And there are people that are just still getting better and better. And the top players in the game, yeah, there's still a lot of luck involved, especially in like a best of 3 or a best of 1 or whatever. But there's a lot of skill too, you know. The people that make it to the top 16 DMM finals consistently are the same people. They are like the best in the game, and they're the best in the game by quite a margin as well. So
I like to ask. I've had dedicated PKers on the cast before, and I always like to like bring up little ideas, and they're not very well thought out. So if you have any like points or anything, but I always wondered, like, okay, so what if PvP, you know, you're 1v1ing somebody, what if you actually could not do any damage if you prayed correctly? Like if you prayed melee and they AGS you, it's a guaranteed 0. Same thing goes with range and mage. And the other thing is, there's 2 options for this one. It's either if they don't have pray mage up, you're guaranteeing a freeze, or just remove freezing altogether. So you still mage them and do, you know, a lot of damage if they're not praying mage, because, you know, you want all 3 styles clearly, but there's just no freezing anymore. So there's not like that huge, oh, I got the advantage, I'm now walking under you for the next 18 fucking seconds. Like, is there potential for those ideas? I don't know.
So it's like leads me to the whole thing I just said about the point system. It radically changes the meta of NHing, where suddenly like hitting off prayer becomes more important than maybe having the right gear on, for example, or in general, like if you're hitting zeros on the right prayer, suddenly it's not a case of like every 5 ticks you want to be changing attack styles and keeping up DPS and keeping that rhythm going, that momentum, but you're going to be stalling ticks and like suddenly going for like 6 ticks or 7
Yeah.
ticks to try and ensure you're always getting hit off prayer. And that still like sounds like a lot of skill involved. Maybe more skill, you know.
It sounds
But again, still
fun.
again, it's like yes, yeah. But again, it's still like a lot of luck involved, a lot of RNG. There's always going to be an element of RNG, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's what RuneScape's built on, right? In all portions of the game, with drops, with the hits that you hit in PVM as well as in PvP. I guess not in skilling. Skilling's not really an RNG when you get to the top levels and you're doing all the methods like 3 tick and 1 tick. But
Yeah, I think it would like. Well, I would love to see it in action, and there's probably some things I just haven't even thought of that are clear. Like, oh, well, that wouldn't work because of this. But seriously, I mean, just getting rid of you ever being frozen. And I would just love to see this be tested. Clearly, it would completely drastically change the game that we all know for past 20 years. But like, just an arena, you're still mage. It's still all the same like gear layouts, but you cannot get frozen. You can still mage them, and all prayers that you protect will always deal zeros. In fact, I actually just thought of another idea. What if there was a recoil? So if you were to AGS whack a guy and he put on pray melee, you would actually take like 2 damage. You would take like a recoil.
Okay.
Actually, so it's even more than just okay. I don't want to lose this hit, but I'm actually going to get reflected damage. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, and then there's other things like I said about the whole like point system. Maybe you just don't have HP suddenly, so you're not having to eat. All you're doing is focusing on your switches constantly until one person hits 100 points or whatever it may be.
True.
Just changing things up.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a purely competitive scenario, all these ideas are really cool and be really interesting to watch. There's like some dev time constraints and kind of like, fanning out what's the best way to do it. But sure, any changes, right? Any changes to the meta? Like every PvP game has meta shifts, has things radically changing, and RuneScape's kind of remained very stale for so many years PvP-wise. I think it's another reason why it may have died out. Even the people that have been PKing for a long time, myself included, kind of get bored of the repetitive nature of it. There's only so many times you can, 1-tick AGS spec someone or do like a Gmaul spec MSB insta or whatever it may be and switch your items so many times that it's just the same thing over and over and over. At least with PVM, you get more bosses, new mechanics to kind of perfect and different gears and stuff. We do get different updates occasionally in PvP every few years. We'll have like recently the harmonized orb, I think was one of the coolest ones that we got, which I like to PK with a lot still today. But yeah, I don't know. I would like to see any stuff like that. I'm definitely in favor for. In the actual wilderness itself, you asked me earlier about like any wilderness changes or PvP changes I like to see. One thing that I don't enjoy very much, Deep Wilderness, is like the 115 HP camp meta of like pray melee if you drop below like 80 and just spam bruise and get away really easily by freeze hugging someone. I find main PKing really boring, which is why I like Pure so much, because there's less of that RNG. Like still there's RNG in terms of do you hit a 0 to a max, but when you go for an accuracy roll, like 9 times out of 10, you're gonna hit on a Pure.
Yeah.
And it's like there's less like room to breathe. If you make a mistake, it's gonna like cost you. And there's more momentum shifts. Like you can get comebacks and suddenly kill someone even though you've been down the whole time because you do everything right for a couple hits. So that's something I'd like to see in main PKing and like in PvP entirely. But then it's like negative drawbacks in terms of like suddenly PVM is going to be, if people are like easier to kill and more damage is being done, then suddenly the people that don't want to be killed, like the PVMs in the wilderness or the newer PKers in the wilderness, I find it even harder to last against those good PKers, and like the gap that we already have from like really, really good to kind of okay or new is like even more stretched. And it's even harder for them. So like it's a difficult one. One idea that I had that I suggested recently was like some amulets, which are like almost like consensual PvP amulets where both players have to wear them. But by wearing them, maybe like the Darok effect, not maybe necessarily increasing your KO potential in terms of damage output, but let's say you lose like 50 HP or under 50 hit points or under 30 hit points, your accuracy is like doubled. So if you are sitting low and you are risking it, high risk, high reward kind of thing on someone else that's also using that amulet, it might change up the meta a little bit more as opposed to everyone just safing and not wanting to die because of ego or risk or whatever it may be. So, yeah.
Okay. A cold one asks, BH Crater, Return of Free Trade BH, or BH1? Which was your favorite?
Oh, damn. So all the different bounty hunters. Man, I've got such fond memories of all of those. So when I like I mentioned before, I was a free-to-play PKer for many years. I was a free-to-play PKer back in original BH creators, free to 55, 50 to 100, and 100 plus were the free worlds back in free-to-play. So I originally, I was a free-to-play PKer, like level 57 combat, and the BH creators came out. And I was like, damn, I can't PK anymore, because if I want to PK, I'm against always level 90s. On level 57, I won't stand a chance. So I made a new Pure, which I PK'd all the way from like 40 to 56 combat in BH, which, to be fair, isn't that much when you're only playing like an hour or two after school. Was just every day coming back, PKing for months on end. And then I got to 56 combat, and I was so sad. I was like, damn, now I'm 56 combat. I have to go to the next bracket or make a new Pure. This sucks. And then the week later, actually, the BH Worlds came out pre-AOC, which was like EP system and all that kind of stuff, and having to wait for your EP to go up again. So I spent years in those worlds as a free-to-play PKer, and then the BH world we have now is obviously the old school one, which I also PK'd for a long time. I think even though I haven't really BH'd much, only re-H'd on the release, I think one of my accounts is like rank couple hundred, like top couple hundred, although I barely did it, apart from the on the original release, we got like a couple thousand kills. But it's so hard to compare them all because they're all different times and nostalgia goggles and all that. Like looking back, you have fond memories, maybe not necessarily because the actual mechanics themselves were the most balanced or the most fun, but because we were all noobs and kids. And usually when you look back on things with, fond memories, you only remember the good and not necessarily the bad. Yeah. So the first BH creator, the negatives of it were that you could like team people, which was good for me because I had a bunch of friends that sat in the middle of the crater. People would teleport to target to us, and then we'd like 2v1 them in free to play, which was a bit busted. And they wouldn't be able to escape even on like swordfish or lobsters or whatever the people used back then. That was fun, but yeah, I don't know. It was kind of I don't know if it would last as well today as it did back then. Then the BH2 was kind of the EP system rewards, and I didn't like EP personally. I found it fun back then because it was enjoyable to, occasionally get a corrupted weapon as a free-to-play PK. I think the corrupted battle axe, I got that once, and it was like worth 100 rune scimitars, like 3 mil. I was like, oh my god, I PK'd 3 mil. Holy shit, I've got so many simmies to PK with now. I'm so rich. And again, I PK'd for years in free-to-play. On that account, I got to that was 56 combat when BH came out. I was probably like 70-something strength. And I PK'd in free-to-play exclusively, all the way to like almost 99 strength from just free-to-play running around. I put in a lot of hours for many, many years doing that. And then I'm pretty sure I got 55 to 85 mage for TB when that was made free-to-play from just binding people and occasionally alking whilst PKing around Fist of Guthix area, the wilderness. Nice. Free-to-play was so fun, man. It's just so simple. Like always active, several thousand people on the world. You could PK in singles, and it was just like a quick little, rune simi to rune 2H. Or you go multi, there were always clans out fighting each other, running up to the hill giants or to the chaos altar or the old bounty hunter area. So good, but again, it's like, memories looking back, always fond of them. And I guess I more enjoyed the activity levels as opposed to maybe the mechanics. Because right now we could not have EP system in the game now; it just wouldn't work. People wouldn't like it, like you kill someone for a bunch of money and you get 12 pike and some mithril chain body and all this kind of stuff. You're like, what the hell? I should have got 10 mil cash. So I don't think EP system would work nowadays. So yeah, I like the old BH we had, BH1, like Edgeville kind of style, plus or minus 5 levels. You got a target. You had to kill that target. If you didn't want the target, you had to like skip them or get a penalty where maybe you couldn't get more targets and have to like sit out for a while. That kind of thing. And then you have the whole emblem system. I like the risk versus reward aspect of the emblem, like I mentioned earlier. If you want to get more money, you've got to risk a high level emblem. If you die for it, the opponent gets it. And then you got to start from level 1 all over again, kind of thing. If you somehow make it to level 10, like boom, that's like load more points compared to just getting a bunch of level 1s. So something that can be sold for, 2 mil GP. And suddenly each of your kills are worth, a couple 100k as opposed to just like 100k for getting normal tier 1s. So yeah, I really like the old BH, and I hope they bring it back. I hope we have a reward system with it. I look forward to seeing what they do at the end of the year with that.
I have a strange question to ask. So, with all of your knowledge of RuneScape, if you could choose one time period in RuneScape to go back to and just absolutely take advantage of just like everything like what time period would you want to go back to with all your knowledge?
Oh god, there's 2 ways to answer this. One is like, do I wanna be a rat and like go back to when pie hats were released and make a fortune by selling gold 10 years later, kind of thing. Yeah. The other is like in terms of like PKing and such, and like have a lot of fun with the game. Um, I could go back to like 2006, like Mahatma kind of days and that, and Elf Mage and all that, and then be the Mahatma of that generation, but no F keys and like all that kind of thing. And also, I don't know, like being really good compared to everyone else that's really bad, I don't think it'd be fun. Like
Really?
stomping everyone, I don't think it would be. Like you just be too good compared to everyone else. Everyone's just like complete noobs, and you're just sitting around like, what do you do?
Yeah. I think there's more to it though, because you would be like a god amongst men.
You
I
would
mean,
be a god, yeah. You
people
would
would
be
see
nuts.
you and you were just annihilating everyone out in the wilderness. Like that's what I'm
I
thinking.
guess,
I'm just
yeah, yeah, true. I guess that's when then, yeah, like 2006, 2007, back when
yeah,
like the wilderness was in its absolute prime. Like everyone was kind of newbie,
yeah.
and those PK vids started to get really popular, and people were like, "Oh my god, it's Elf Mage or Mahatma or whoever it is
Hmm.
in the wild." And that's yeah, that's probably the era that I go back to. But if I wanted to, like I said, become filthy rich,
Yeah.
release a pie hats, crackers, stock
Literally.
up on multiple accounts.
Literally.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Buy out all of them. Well, not all of them, because then history would have changed probably. But yeah, just get a
yeah.
fair few of them.
Get a bunch, yeah,
Yeah.
and also stake and all that kind of stuff. Odd stake people, move on stake,
Hmm.
barrage stake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really crazy even to think just in old school's history. Well, by the way, I mean it's almost been out for a decade, so I guess it's not.
Hmm.
That's so weird to think 2013 was 9 years ago, because that still feels like yesterday. But yeah, I mean even looking back then with everything, I mean nobody knew anything about the game even then. I mean, yeah, you knew more than you did when you were like 5, but like I don't know. It.
Maybe even like in terms of old school's period, even like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, if you
Mhm.
go back that long, at least the game like had, like good you had F keys, you had a few bosses, God Wars Dungeon Return, that kind of stuff. You go back to all the way to 2006 and that, like aside from PKing, like what else do you do? Kill the KBD and Calcite Queen in the game. So
Yeah,
it'd be a bit boring to have to wait so many years for everyone to catch up and
it's true.
all the updates you want to happen.
Okay. EVscape, bringing it back up. If you could only eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it beans?
Yeah, like I said, it's nostalgia food. I like it. If I could eat one food for the rest of my life, um, most people would say like pizza, right? Because you can have all kinds of different toppings on pizza. Everyone loves pizza. I'd probably say pasta, maybe like a type of pasta. I don't know.
Okay.
I really enjoy meatball pasta with loads of veggies. Um,
So do you like
something
more
like that.
tomato based, or would you like Alfredo or like some white
Yeah,
sauce based?
yeah. I'd say tomato based. Big fan of pasta with lots of vegetables in it, like I said, or a pizza. I don't know
Yeah.
because like it's like a trick question. If you say pizza and you say with the preface that I can change the pizza every day, it's not really one food, is it?
Yeah,
For the
yeah.
rest of your life, it's a bit of a cheat.
It's like saying seafood. That's my go-to, just seafood. That's what I would eat for the rest of my life. I love
Yeah,
seafood.
yeah. I don't know. I guess I'll go on then, Evie. Yeah, beans on toast. Is that what you want to hear? There we go.
There we go. That's the answer we were looking for. Um, okay. Uwu Amy asks, who are, in your opinion, the best PKers of all time? And how about upcoming PKers to watch out for? Also, love the hat collection and love you.
Oh, much love, Amy. Love you too. So best PKers of all time. Like I mentioned earlier, Mahatma. He was like the big inspiration for me to make a an elf mage as well to make a pure and like do pure PKing back in free to play in the early days. I just remember seeing a video of his which was like him being so cocky and arrogant, being like, "How that defense pot taste good?" as he like KO'd people, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" Like listening to all the old music back in the day, and Elf Mage again was like a cool one. He was 20 defense for a while, the mystics and all that. That was fun to watch. There's like the icons that I kind of grew up with, all their PK videos. In terms of like all-time best PKer though, in recent years, I gotta put some respect on my man Odablock because like all round, he is extremely good. In terms of like Venge Risker, especially, he is one of the best. And it's the reason what I would say would be the best PKer is someone that can do all different styles of PKing, not just a one-trick pony that's only good in one certain style. And Oda's like click precision, his understanding of the game tick system, despite never doing PVM or skilling, is really phenomenal. He's really good at NHing too. He got to the top 8 in the recent DMM finals, even though he doesn't really NH anymore. And then like pure PK he can do, main PK he can do, like I said. I'd say as like in terms of well-known players, he's probably one of the best all round. In terms of like NHing specific, I got to say people like Abu, 1013, probably the names that come to mind. I like West Ham a lot. He probably wouldn't put himself as one of the top PKers, but I just really love his videos recently. He's been killing it, so shout out to him.
Oh yeah, great videos.
Yeah, great videos, and in general, like he's a really, really good nature too.
Yeah.
Who else? PKers. Like, again, like it comes down to when it comes to entertainment value. I'd say that my favorite or best PKers from all the years that I've been watching Twitch and all that, I'd say Adam's a very good one to watch, even though he doesn't really PK much anymore. I watch his recent LMS videos, extremely entertaining. The way like he talks about what he's doing and such, and just his overall excitement. Obviously, he loves the game, still very passionate, and he's not really PKing much anymore. But his old PK videos too, like the One Man Army series and such, iconic. Pre-EOC, I used to watch him PK as well. One of the guys that got me into PKing and made me start YouTube, actually, my biggest kind of inspiration was Adwam, who you had on, I think last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
He used to make videos of anti-rushing, and I was a noob, didn't do any YouTube back then and all that kind of stuff. So I ended up watching his vids, finding him in game in the high risk world. He used to have like a low level account with like Vengeance and like Debo anti-rush the claw rushes and like make loads of money. I was like, oh my god, this guy's so cool. And so I met him in game and gave him like this green dragon mask from like Blue Scrolls, and he wore it in his next video, and I was fanboying so hard, and that's what like inspired me to start making an anti-rusher and start getting into high risking and all that kind of stuff on my own YouTube. So shout out to Adwam. Skill specs in recent years, I've watched Jay. I've been friends with Jay for like almost 10 years now, and he's just so entertaining. Even though he's not necessarily anywhere near the best PKer, he's not bad. He's good. He just takes a lot of dumb risks and just plays the game for fun, and he's very entertaining. Can't get enough of Jay really when it comes to PKing. Yeah, those are some of the names that I would probably shout out as some of the best PKers.
Expanding on that, Hootie Tootie, who we're also going to be having on the Sae Bae cast next week,
nice.
He asks, what is, in your opinion, the best OG PK video on YouTube?
OG PK video? Like I said, that Hatma video where he says how that death pot tastes, like that's the greatest. Sticks out in my mind as like the one that kind of influenced me the most and kind of made me want to make a pure. And watching that, I got like very fond memories and such. And like all of Elv Mage PK vids are slappers, mostly because of the PKing itself was really good back then as well. Especially he was like quite way ahead of everyone else. But the music choice is absolutely incredible. Like when I look back at that era, all of the rock music and music that he used there, so many of us grew up with, like PKers grew up with that kind of music, and it's very nostalgic for people. So his vids just popped off every time, Elf Mage. Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at a picture right here from Father Eric. He says, can you tell us what the fuck was going on behind the scenes at the Dead Man Mode tournament live cast with your height versus Aiza?
I have no idea what you're talking about, man. Not a clue.
Okay, first of all, were you on like a stool? I am like,
yeah,
you are legit like a foot taller than I use.
Yeah,
I love the meme, the 5'11", 6'.
Yeah, Ben's an absolute legend, man. Nothing but good things to say about He's very proud to call him our head of community manager now.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
We basically we were about to cast, and then we found this. He didn't want to look too short compared to me. He's not even short, but I'm 6 foot, and he's a few inches shorter than me. So he was like, oh, I don't want to, look a bit too small on the camera and that. So he found like a stool, and he was like, as a joke, oh, I'm going to stand on this, to make us look the same height. And then he stood on it, and he ended up being taller than me. And I was like, wait, no, we can't have that. And then we like joked around, like, wouldn't it be funny if, in between camera shots, we kind of changed positioning. And by the end of it, like, you're just really massive, like much taller than me, and I like duck down a little bit, and I'm just looking up to you or something like that.
I love how dead serious his face is, just looking up at you like totally casually, just. Oh
it was basically that, and then right at the end, the last scene, I think I stood on it, so I was literally several feet taller than him, just completely different. But yeah, it was just a last minute kind of being silly, and a lot of people picked up on it and found it quite funny. So again, casting a lot of it's the whole entertainment aspect, and we had a lot of fun with it. So yeah.
Okay, here's a question. We've covered a couple of these already, but I'll just list them off anyway. The main one I want to focus on is the last one, but he asks, what's your favorite moment on stream, which we already covered? What is the most GP you have ever made in one session from PKing? And then his final question is, if you were to ever stop streaming, making OSRS content, what would be your dream job?
Well, I am definitely living my dream job right now. When I started doing videos and streaming all that kind of stuff, like I said, it was for a hobby, and although it has its ups and downs, partly, I'm personally responsible for that, not necessarily streaming and balance in life and such. Yeah, I really, really love streaming, and I hope I get to do it for many years to come. If I wasn't streaming, I guess I'd like to work in the games industry. I'd like to get a job, maybe not for Jagex, but yeah, somewhere in the games industry and esports, something like that. Community managerial position would be, I think, a lot of fun, kind of community facing and representing a team, all that kind of stuff. I think what both Bens do, Model Light, etc. Social media stuff looks really fun and enjoyable. So maybe I'd like to get to that one day when streaming inevitably doesn't work out anymore if RuneScape dies or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'd also love to be like being self-employed is such a freedom. It's awesome not being able to, answer to anyone apart from, I guess, the Twitch chat and people that support you. It's really cool to kind of have that freedom and being your own boss and all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to start a business one day, but that takes a lot of money and some kind of great idea. So I don't know. Get back to me in many years to come. Maybe we'll see where life takes us, kind of thing. How much is the most I've PK'd in one session? Ooh, in old school.
Yeah.
I've had back when I used to risk fight a lot. Like on average, you probably make a few hundred mil a day if you were consistently like good and getting lots of fights. And if I had like some bigger risk fights, like in the hundreds of mils, maybe I could PK like a couple of bill in a good night. If it was like a really good night and got a really good RNG, I've PK'd like 1 bill here and there off people, or like 1.2 bill like a couple years ago from a guy in Full Inquisitor. Back when it was worth, a bill plus.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and pre-OC, I was risk fighting as well, and I did like party hat fights back when they were worth like 500 mil to a bill.
Jesus.
PK'd one of those a long time ago, but that was pre-OC, so very different. If I had that still today, my gosh, they're worth crazy amounts on RuneScape 3 now.
How much are they in OSRS gold?
Crazy, dude. I think like some of them are worth like hundreds of bills now, or like almost 100 bill, and the swap rates are like one.
Okay.
In RS3, and the swap rate's like 1 to 5, aren't they? 1 to 4. So still, we're talking tens of bills, old school money for a party hat, which is nuts amount. Yeah. Nowadays, I don't really. I still PK, but like risking is completely different. It's very sweaty. Like for a long time, it was a lot of the best PKers kind of turned to risk fighting as like a part-time job, and some of them like full-time job, making like 5 figures plus a month from just risk fighting and selling gold. And nowadays, because of that, like some people are taking it so seriously and just being really good clienting, AHKing. The scene's pretty dead, especially on pures. Everyone just like camps over full HP and is very, very good at the game, doesn't really make any mistakes. And it's very much RNG based as opposed to like necessarily skill based nowadays. So I don't really do much risk fighting, as well as the fact that like you need the max RNG to kill people. So it's not very good stream content, right? To like sesh the same guy for an hour or two, waiting for that perfect number to maybe PK a bit of GP. It's just I'd rather like fight in normal PvP worlds, have fun, get consistent kills, even if they're just like worth a couple 100k, a few mil at a time, and enjoy it that way. Yeah, I don't really PK a load of money like I used to. A good night for me now, I'd say, if I PK'd for a few hours, would be a few 100 mil, like a really good night. Otherwise, the average that'll PK is like maybe 50 mil to 100 mil in a few hours if I'm like consistently getting fights. Yeah, it's still pretty profitable if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask you because been going for about 3 hours, and I have my last topic that I'll ask, or my little shout out topic that I ask. But is there anything else that you would like to cover beforehand?
I feel I've been talking your ear off for the past 3 hours. I'm surprised that 3 hours is
not at all. Not at all. I love it.
I'm surprised the 3 hours has passed already because my gosh, it's gone by so quickly. It's been an absolute pleasure. Any topics that I want to discuss? Honestly, I think you've kind of got a range of things that you've got from me. Again, just been really happy to be here, and it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you and Thank you for listening to my long talks about random things.
No, this has been absolutely fantastic. I love it when the guests can just go off, because then I just get to sit back and relax and listen. So I've loved it. Well, I guess I'll ask you then for 3 shout outs. And I know there's been a lot of shout outs throughout the cast, but 3 in particular, maybe even some shout outs that haven't been listed. I mean, I know one of the most generic ones is Bodhi. I mean, that is like what that's like it's basically
Godfather,
asking
right?
for 2 shout outs every guest, because Bodhi's always one of them. But
So in terms of like just creators, like people that I want to say you should check out, kind of thing.
yeah, pretty much anybody in the community, any player, any viewer, any streamer, anybody basically.
Okay.
JMods.
I guess I'll say shout out to. Oh God, you put me in the spot now.
Yep, I have.
Like I said, I watch a lot of skill specs. I mentioned about skill specs before. Absolutely adore Jay. Definitely go give him some love. He has had his ups and downs, like I mentioned before, about with content creation and being in lulls and love for the game and mental health and stuff. And he's recently been absolutely killing it. I'm really proud of him that he's really pulled his finger out. He's been uploading to YouTube a lot as well, which I'm really happy with as well. Great to see him doing that. I also mentioned, I don't think I mentioned Dino actually. I've been waking up in the mornings watching Dino quite a lot lately, and again, really proud of his progress. He's been so consistent for years now, and he's killing it, killing the game. He's like one of the most viewed RuneScape streamers actually in terms of hours watched every month. So props to him. I guess all the guys at Jagex. I mentioned Ben and Ben earlier, but all the JMods for everything they do, like extremely grateful. And happy that we still get to play this game, and hopefully for many years to come. So yeah, really grateful for them. And I guess in terms of a player that I want to shout out, my friend Blade Hobbit recently got his metamorphic dust at 1200 KC. So yeah, shout out to him. Congratulations. He's a Ironman Zerker, and he's been grinding hard mode Tob for months. So yeah, congrats on finally getting it done, mate.
Hell yeah. Okay. That was 3, right? I was
Just about. Yeah,
lost count. All right, great.
Yeah.
Ian, I seriously have had a pleasure chatting today. It always flies by. I always ask my guests, to those listening, I ask my guests, what's the kind of time range you guys would like to go for? And there's always some sort of time, but every single time it's like that went a lot faster than I was anticipating. So, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. Guys, there will be PureSpam's links down in the description. Be sure to follow him. There will be a Twitch link, Twitter link, YouTube. Is there anything else, Ian, you'd like down there?
No, plug your stuff as well. Go make sure you check out Sae Bae on Twitter and follow him. Make sure you watch his streams as well. I know you stream a crazy amount recently, and thank you for putting these podcasts out. I haven't watched all of them, I'll be honest, but most
I don't
evenings
expect anyone to have watched all of them. Yeah.
Most evenings before I go to bed, I do put some on sometimes and listen as I'm drifting off. And I really enjoyed the recent ones you did, especially with Adam. Obviously, I'm sure everyone's like to check that one out. But yeah, thank you for everything you do for the community as well. And yeah, thank you for having me. I've had an absolute pleasure. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, much love.
Much love, dude. All right, guys. Next week we are having Hootie Tootie on the cast. I also will mention, if you guys would like to support the Sae Bae cast, there's a Patreon link down in the description. And for $2 a month, you can support it, get your name on the title screen and all that. But other than that, that's it for me. So thank you guys very much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.